We are going to reconvene our meeting at 6:30 for April 5th. 2023. Sometimes I gotta say the year out loud just to understand that that's the year. It's kind of flying by. Okay, so we started off today's meeting at 5 o'clock. We had two items in the closed session to discuss. We came out of in camera at 6:21, I believe it was. Had a quick break, which you all just were part of, and now we are reconvened and ready to move on with the agenda. The agenda was adopted with no additions. And we had no motions arising from close. Is that correct, council? Nothing. Leave as is. Good. Can I get 5.1 minutes of the regular meeting for March 15th for adoption, please? And I have Cindy, Councillor Holiday. Any questions? Hazel, clear?
Yeah.
Perfection?
Yeah, it's all good.
All in favor? Perfect, and that is carried. You might be thinking, why such a small council today? Well, we've got Brendan Kelly is just getting back from Edmonton, deputy mayor. We have Miss Veronica Kleiber, who's usually here, is on holiday, I believe. And Councillor Gordon just had a heart attack last week, but he is doing great because we have amazing emergency support staff. So he had into the foothills at 4:30. He was texting all the council by 10:30. Hey, blah, 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 like, just like nothing had happened, but, no, he is recouping. But everything went very well for him. He's got a stint in and, yeah, saw him today walking with his son. So, lots of prayers for, Jonathan as we move forward. So, but he'll be back in probably a week, knowing Jonathan hasn't stopped texting, so all good. And that is that. Question period. 6.1. So 6.1 question period we have is a section of time dedicated for the public to ask questions of council or administration for points of clarity or general inquiry, anything you want. The rules for question period are up here. Long and short of it, try and get us a written question prior to the meeting. And then if there's any background work we need to do, we can get administration to do that. You can email, text, phone, talk to a counselor, talk to administration, talk to the secretary, whatever you want, however you want to communicate, we will take the question. Mr. Patience, have we got any questions?
Only from Councillor Thompson, though I'm sure we'll bring these up later in the meeting there, Frank. Or would you like to deal with them now?
My question's on which one? Well, we'll just go through as we get to those sections.
That's fine by me.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Moving on. We've got a big agenda tonight too, so everyone's gonna have to be their fastest and talk with clarity. Okay, 7 statutory and non-statutory hearings. Well, tonight we actually have a statutory hearing. And that is for bylaw 2023-12, the advertising bylaw. So I have a nice preamble here that outlines the exact nature of how a public hearing is to be done by the MGA. So bear with the droll speaking notes. I hereby declare the public hearing for bylaw 2023-12, the advertising bylaw, opened at 6:37. This public hearing is held pursuant to section 216.4 of the Municipal Government Act to hear representations from the public on proposed bylaw 2023-12. I'm Mayor Barry Crane and I'm the presiding officer for today's hearing. Will council please introduce themselves, starting with Councillor Thompson, moving to my right.
Heather Thompson.
Councillor Cindy Holiday. Councillor Hayes Miller.
And would administration please do the same, starting with Ms. Middleton and moving to Sean and then Ross, the roll.
Frank Middleton, founder.
Corporate Services and Finance Manager.
Yes.
John Patience, Chief Administrative Officer.
Ernest Staples, Legislative Services Supervisor.
Lisa Brown, Executive Assistant. Against Fire Chief Station 2.
Jamie Campbell, Fire Chief Station 3.
Don Ross, Planning Manager.
Craig Beaton, Operations Manager.
Monica LeBlanc, Community Services and Recreation Manager.
Perfect, thank you very much. All discussions by council members, administration, and speakers shall be directed through me as the presiding officer. During the public hearing, we ask that you respect the views of everyone here and allow each person their time to speak without interruption. Each person wishing to speak will be given up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to council. I ask that you indicate if you are speaking on your own behalf, on behalf of another person or group of persons or an organization. When you are finished speaking, please remain at the front, in the hot seat, as we like to call it right here, and council may ask questions of you. This hearing will be carried out in orderly fashion in accordance with the normal parliamentary procedures. Mr. Patience, can you please confirm whether this public hearing has been advertised and notice given in accordance with the requirements of the municipal government?
Yes, Mayor Crane, I can attest to the fact that we have followed all the obligations and have signed off on the certification of the advertising requirements for the public hearing.
Yes, thank you. And we're gonna go with the staff report, and that is gonna be Mr. Rod. So Rod, could you please present your staff report and explain the purpose of the proposed bylaw to the public and to council?
No, I don't think Rod's doing this one.
Or are you good?
Here, we'll tag team this.
Rod, I just wanted to really see your. The only reason for doing it that way.
Work two.
Norwood, oh boy. Okay, Sean, you're up.
I will pass this over to Ms. Staples, but council is required to hold a public hearing for an advertising bylaw prior to adopting an advertising bylaw in accordance with section 6061 of the Municipal Government Act. This particular bylaw was given first reading on the 1st of February 2023 and was amended by council at that time as requested. So Ms. Staples, I'll have you fill in the blanks on this.
Sure. So the bylaw, I think we tried to find a good balance, and I think council was agreeable. We did make one small amendment after first reading at their request. So I think it's a good balance of using digital and print media to have at least 1 week in the paper and on the website. So information is there for everybody. There are other venues we can use to advertise statutory hearings as required. But those two are required, so it gives anybody an ability to find the information. It also balances our budgetary requirements of using print media. The MGA requires 2 consecutive weeks of publication. The bylaw only requires 1, so it does slim that down a little bit for us as well. Although it doesn't prohibit us from doing 2 weeks should we feel the need necessary.
Is that all the excitement?
That's enough excitement for one night.
Okay, council, you may ask questions at this time of staff. We've already seen it 4 or 5 times, so we're pretty bored of it now. But Hazel, go ahead.
Typically, you only would advertise for 1 week on the website as opposed to maybe
1 week is there. Sorry.
like maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
So depending on the timing and the amount of lead time that we have, we are required to do a minimum of 1 week. So we can do more if we have more lead time.
Okay, for sure. Okay, because you'll have like, right now, we will have like 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we're going to be having a very, in a couple of weeks' time.
That's correct.
All good? Yeah, and just to reiterate, in the past, everything has been over advertised versus under advertised from anything I've ever dealt with. So 2 weeks minimum in, well, 2 cycles of the paper. So, yeah.
And I might add to that,
Yeah,
if I
sure.
may, Mr. Mayor, that the MG does set out requirements for advertising for public hearings, for statutory hearings. It also does allow the council under 6061 to develop their own bylaws, to determine their own advertising requirements based on specific community requirements and what is felt by council to be the most efficient and appropriate methods of advertising. So that's why this advertising bylaw requires its own public hearing, so that the public is well aware that council is deliberating this particular piece, because it will affect future advertising of statutory hearings and public hearings.
Cool. All right. Okay, Mr. President, seeing you're speaking anyway, has the town received any written submissions not included in the staff report? And if so, I would ask that you read them out loud and have them entered into the record.
We have received none, Mr. Mayor.
I am very surprised, as this is extremely enthralling material. All right, at this point of the hearing, I will call upon anyone wishing to speak on the proposed bylaw. Please note that each party wishing to speak will have only one opportunity to do so. So if you are speaking and have already provided a written submission, please summarize your concerns. Council members may ask presenters questions for the purpose of clarifying the speaker's comments, and council will not debate this matter during the hearing. Decision regarding whether to grant the bylaw for readings will be dealt with later on the agenda or at a subsequent meeting if deemed necessary. So at this time, I would ask administration if anyone has registered or signed in to speak on the bylaw. And we have none. All right, then I will call on speakers at this time. I would ask that if anyone present in the room who has not yet spoken and would like to speak to the bylaw, please come forward to the seat right here in front of us, and you will have an opportunity to do so. Going once. Going twice. And sold. Seeing none, we will move on to the last call for submissions. I will ask administration to verify that there are no further written submissions. And is there anyone here who wishes to speak? Please come forward to speak now. Once. Going twice. All right. Does administration have any closing remarks or responses to questions or concerns that were brought forward during the meeting?
Oh, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you. Is council satisfied that they have obtained sufficient information from this public hearing? Thoughts? And at that point, I would like to thank everyone who chose to speak and or spoke and provide submissions for their comments. Council will take your comments into consideration, then decide on this matter. With that said, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2023-12 closed at 6:45. And they say that government moves slow, but I think that was pretty quick. Very fast. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're moving on. Delegations, here we go. Now the fun stuff. RCMP Staff Sergeant Don C. Why don't you come on down? We've got 3 delegations this evening. RCMP, Pam Lycan and Brad Wellington Carshow. Thank you. Well, thanks for coming to see us tonight.
Okay, thank you very much for welcoming me to your council meeting. I appreciate it. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Don Reset. I'm brand new to Turner Valley, but I used to live in High River from 2010 to 2015. I moved away to BC. Wanted to come back to God's country, so it made it so, and I went to Slave Lake. I was there for almost 5 years, and then I had an opportunity to come to Turner Valley, which I embraced the opportunity and had a meeting and had a board with your lovely mayor, and he selected me. So, thank you.
So how long have you been in town now?
I've been here about 3 weeks, so
Nice.
the boat's still rocky, and I'm still trying to hang on to the ship. So I'm not going anywhere. I know that there's been a lot of revolving doors the last couple of months, so I'm here to stay. So I'm your guy.
Nice. I will just let you know this, the Lions Club traditionally has a RCMP, so one of our previous staff sergeants, Tyler Gray,
Yes.
runs a golf tournament in honor of the RCMP, and that is coming up this year. I think it's June 16th. And I'm sure if you haven't met him yet, he will be in to meet you. So just forewarn.
No, I've met him. So
Oh,
when I was in High River
Nice.
and had an opportunity to play in the golf tournament. So I know Tyler, and I met him.
Excellent.
He probably might not recognize him. So,
Oh, there you go. I see you getting a great hair.
yes, yes.
Yeah, we're hard for 43, I know.
It is, 43.
Well, you were. That's excellent. We do love to see lots of community participation from the officers. Whenever we have an opportunity, this is a great opportunity. So I just want to point that out. One of my only questions for you is any talk amongst the staff about changing the station to Diamond Valley?
there is discussion. I think we're still waiting for our operational strategical branch
Yeah.
to be in discussion. And the discussions have taken place already, with yourself and some of the councillors. I'm just waiting for official word to, I'm embracing it and I'm looking forward to having that name change. So yes, yeah.
Good, good. Excellent. Council, any questions? Really, it's a meet and greet, just to know, man.
Welcome to the community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for dropping
Thank
down.
you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time. Yes. If
Excellent.
you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to call me. And I will come and personally meet with you. I will not call you on the phone. I want to meet you in person to show you that I care and I am here to address your concerns, wants and expectations.
Excellent.
Thank
We
you
look
so
forward
much.
to the quarterly report.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Don.
Have a great, week.
You bet, you don't have to stay.
Okay.
All right, take care. All right, 8.2, Miss Pam Lakin. Hard not to. Event
You're on.
proposal.
This is awkward because I'm looking at you guys, but look at all these people.
See, now you know the conundrum.
So majority of people in this room do know me. There's a couple that I know I don't know. So my name's Pam Licken. I grew up in Millerville, graduate of Oilfields way back when, been in the area for about 50 years. I'm also the co-founder of Hard Knocks Brewery. And I run that, I operate that on my own as my co-founder brother is no longer involved hands-on, along with my amazing staff. This presentation is from Pam Licken and Indirectly Hard Knocks. And the Indirectly Hard Knocks is because it's an initiative that I think not just Hard Knocks will benefit, but every person, business in this town will. So back in November, I started looking at, we'll get to this in 2 seconds, okay? I started looking at, hey, Diamond Valley. I've been a huge supporter of amalgamation for the last 30 years and happy has happened, but I wanted to see that Diamond Valley, like, how do we get Diamond Valley on the map? And we don't just change the name and then we have one council, great, and then we just carry on like we've always done. And you guys do everything behind the scenes and have all the struggles you're going through in trying to make 2 very distinguished towns into one. So on a wild, crazy weekend, I was surfing the internet and I came across Guinness Book of World Records. I thought, well, there's an idea. What if we could host try to capture a world record here in Diamond Valley? And so fast track on, I started speaking with them in November. I put in an application all excited and thought, oh, they'll never call. Well, they called. And for the last, well, since December, they called. And no, I was bursting and I couldn't tell anyone because it's like, you can't say anything until a contract's signed. So the proposal is, this is from Guinness themselves, so some of it I'll skip through, but they wear the Guinness World Records. You can go on to page 3. They talk about their brand. So here's some of the stats. You know, they get 150 million books are sold. So you'd be in that. You're 31 million Facebook followers. Like I'm a social guru for not just my business, but for about 8 other small businesses. So that stat's huge. 4.6 million Instagram. So it's huge. So we carry on. And then they talk about, you know, their consumer engagement. So this is their pitch basically to me, but I was already sold beyond this. So you can carry on. So what is our brief or my brief to present to you is celebrating the merging of Black Diamond and Turner Valley into one municipality and put the new town on the map with a record-breaking attempt of the entire community could be part of, not just our community, but possibly people from all over Canada. Next slide. The largest cornhole tournament. So I don't know how many of you are aware, but cornhole has been around since I was a kid, but it's resurfaced. It's becoming a big thing again. And if you're my age, you don't want to call it cornhole, you want to call it beanbag toss. However, nowadays cornhole does not have that yeah. Anyways, so I started looking at it we actually have a Canadian, a national association of cornhole out of Toronto. We have 2 chapters of associations here in Alberta. That's how big it is. The last attempt, current record is 730 participants. It was done in the Utah State Fair, and that was just done in September. So I want to go for 1,000 participants, 500 teams. So we carry on. And this just tells me the guidelines, which really is irrelevant to this conversation. I mean, it's about running the match officially, making sure the boards are regulation, your land is, everything's to the book. It has to be per the cornhole regulations of North America, which they can be and will be. And there has to be one clear winner. I've gone for the big whammy, want the official judge here, want the TV, CTV, Global, you know, Calgary Herald, Calgary Sun, more publicity we can get. I'm going for hitting the national in, you know, Toronto. And unfortunately, I have a, you know, quite an array of contacts within the many things I've done in my past life. And so I have no qualms of meeting the media attention that we need, but we need that avenue to get the media attention that we're done in Ballard. And so I think the cornhole tournament can do it. So carry on. It's a record-breaking campaign. So the Guinness World Record Office, they help us with the planning and help guide and steer of how it all has to get put together and really assist you in ensuring that you are a success and that you don't fail. We don't say, hey, we're playing cornhole and there's the judge. No, it's not like that at all. It's very regimented, and they'll help us with that. So I've asked for the official adjudicator. So not a problem. We're allowed to use their logos and everything we do. You know, the banners, the signage, they will be all a part of that. You know, and across all their channels, which were those stats that you saw before, right? 31 million followers on Facebook. Even if you get 10% of them seeing it, people are, you know, it's exciting, right? In my opinion, anyways. So then the post attempt, for how many months afterwards, it gets to use the logo and continue to brag about the fact that Diamond Valley has just won this award, world record, I should say. So carry on. So this goes on to what they offer, their soft services, so consultancy. So some of that, I mean, that's what they've been doing with me for the last 3 months, and then I put a halt to it. I did want to jump on council right away in January and felt, no, let's let everyone get settled in and really try to figure out what they're doing with the town before I come and present a party. So the adjudication, designated official, that includes like the presentation, the person's here, the whole works, the banners, the awards, which get hung up in town offices and anyone that participates. So carry off. So we do have to pay a licensing fee, and this is where the money and I guess a contract per se has to be signed. So when I first called them, like you say, it was Pam Licken calling, because I'm just like, no, I want this to be a huge success, whether I'm a business owner or not. And then they said, oh, you really should get the town involved. I said, why is that? She said, because it'll cost you twice as much money if you do it as an individual business. And I don't want this to be a hard knocks initiative. I don't, yes, we'll be a major sponsor, but so could be Rona or FAR or anybody. I want this to be a town initiative, and I'll do all the hard work and whatever. I don't need any claim to fame, but I do want it to come from town of Diamond Valley, just to be clear. So we carry on the licensing fee. So you're getting your, you know, the logos, the video content, they'll do a complete video that goes on their YouTube and everything. So do all that for us for the official attempt. All the collateral we get. Next one. sponsored content, yeah, they do social posts, etc. That's kind of just all the easy stuff, quite frankly. And then they'll celebrate, you get the participation awards, badges, so you can imagine if, you know, let's say only 500 people in our area came, you know, just to be able to say they were part of this, or maybe see themselves in that video. And, you know, it's the flower shop and they put a team in, they're playing on their own board, or maybe they're playing on the sponsored board from Hard Knocks. And then afterwards I get to take those boards home, just as one of the concepts that I've been thinking of. So next one. Of course, it's all about bringing the media coverage to Diamond Valley and gaining that. Like I say, I think it's so important that, you know, if all of Canada hears about this and sees what we have to offer, there's got to be a domino effect after that, where they come next year, or they come, you know, the following summer, what have you, and just leading up to it. You know, I anticipate RVers that are, you know, maybe pros from Toronto saying, shit, I'm entering that because of the cash prize at the end, which I'll get to. So we carry on. So this is where, so after speaking with Monique, that indicated that, you know, there's not really the people strength right now within the Diamond Valley town office, etc. Volunteers are short, so that the one way this is only going to be possible is if someone else leads it. So behind the scenes, I would take on that role. Hard Knocks will lead it, be the team lead. Already got like half a dozen volunteers that would be on the committee. That include businesses and marketing experts and videographers and whatever. So creative people that will support this. And so I'm not looking for people from the town per se. So then the rights, yeah, 7 months afterwards. So there's the fee, $39,000 US. Go, everyone go. I get it. That is the top price. Because I haven't been able to flush it out or do any arm wrestling negotiation, which I'm pretty good at. Right, Rob? Not bad, right? Yeah. So with that said, we can cover those costs because every team will have to pay an entry fee. So at $125 per team to enter, which is only $75 each. Not a big deal. I've asked some people. Shit, yeah. That would break us even. I'm going for the 150, which then gives us that little buffer to help with some of the other costs. Now, this will be a totally nonprofit thing. And I hope to put a charity onto it. So whether it's the Business Club or something within Diamond Valley specific, there would be a charity element of it. Because if I can pull it off, and I've pulled off a $250,000 nonprofit concert back in 2009, where not one penny came out of my pocket, and it was a sold out show. So I know that I have the ability to raise those funds, and not nervous at all. And maybe I have to sign something off that says if it fails, Pam, you're paying for it all. I don't know. I'll do it. So anyways, I've got that covers the entire cost, plus it gives it the prize money. So my thoughts are, so who's going to spend $150 to play cornhole for one day, to be on Guinness? And well, some people might. Yeah, I got that extra, and others are like, shit, that's expensive. The prize, first place prize will be $5,000, second prize place will be $3,000, and then probably $1,000, give or take 500 either way. Don't know until I get the final spreadsheet done on all the costs. But I figured now all of a sudden, oh, shit, not only am I in a Guinness video, this is a huge deal for our area. Plus I might luck out and win $5,000. Why not? It's good. I think it can really bring the two communities together. So carry on from that. I didn't even look at this. I have no additional add-ons. That's just for more publicity. I think because maybe if we were a big city, or, you know, if Calgary Stampede was doing it, yeah, you do all the add-ons because that brings worldwide travelers or the Utah State Fair or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, we have to realize we are just a small little foothills town. But we do want people to know about us. Okay. So then they brag about themselves, and this one is actually, I didn't bother with that one, skip past that, Berna. But I found, the second one was this was making slime. So would Carrie go on, but this one was kind of similar idea of what I've got. So they put the most people on a surfboard to, keep in thing with Surf City. It was also to attract visitors and bring a national spotlight to the city, also known as Surf City, USA. So, Huntington Beach, wanted to bring in more tourism. And from my understanding, whenever I talk to anybody, we know we are a little tourist hub. How do we continue to build that? So hence why I'm here today. And so, you can scroll past all the rest of that because they're just more, 172 million people view it, that'd be cool, but. And so that's just some more case studies. So the next steps is the proposal is confirmed, basically what you've just seen there. I can go back and tweak it, fine tune it a little bit more. Once, town say, hey, we like that idea, carry on, go forward type thing. Then we execute the contract, payment issued. I gotta talk to them about that because that's obviously stumbling block. Hamilton does not have $40,000. Hard Knocks definitely does not have $40,000, and the town doesn't have $40,000. I get all of that, with the exception of maybe it's piecing all those monies together to do that. I haven't had that conversation, but I know I'll figure it out, and it could be I got a company and I'll say, I'll put that up. It's a bond or something like that. We'll cover that cost. But the thing is once the contract's executed, then I could start I'll reach out to the national, start getting it out. Hey, register. Diamond Valley is going for this world record, right? And once everybody's paid and signed up, the money's not an issue and we've got a surplus of money. So carry on. No idea that second part there. Some of it I've already said because I didn't. Now there's part two. Did you get it? Yeah.
Part two.
Just part two about what now. So that was the Guinness slide that they sent me, and then just kind of more. Okay, great. That sounds fantastic, but. What is Pam / Hard Knocks sponsors and how would this all jive? Some of the thoughts I've come, some of them I've already said. So go to the second one, it's pretty quick. And just so you know where I've come from, I have done a lot of research on this, but steps to success. Obviously, Town of DV approves and signs a contract with Guinness World Records, which in turn will allow Hard Knocks Brewery, my team, and the volunteers and the community I put together to move forward right away, start getting people registered for the tournament. Basically, I'm looking for the town of Diamond Valley to support the committee with approvals for logistics. The dreaded parking, all of a sudden, how are you going to shift? Say the location is up by the school, or it's Ronas Field, or we talked about or in Turner Valley, where was it best? And we use the shuttle service. Okay, everyone for that tournament has to park there. And, when this all gets laid out, so participants come, they get their band, then they get on that bus and they go to wherever. So the logistics, looking for the support from the town for the logistics of the transportation and parking, and local advertising. I'm pretty confident locally. Don't really need to spend those dollars. I mean, Western Wheel has written up, I don't know how many stories on my business, and I've never paid a penny to them. Yes, I've advertised there, but so I'm sure the publicity will come pretty free in that regards. And then talked about that already. And just the overall support. I got questions. I don't, hey, Rod, we got this issue. What should I do? Who do I go with? Who do I go for? Who do I talk to, you know? Okay, we need, talk to transportation, and yeah, we've got volunteers for their crosses and people walking across the road or whatever. But town needs to be informed of all of that so that we, the committee, do things correct. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of looking from that, as well as the signing contract. So next page. Just so you know, like I said, I done the research on cornhole, and it's becoming, it's incredibly how massive it is. Talked about the associations, and then, and with the exception of even the associations and, you know, the campers and the breweries that are all doing this now. I mean, just in this area, we're drawing from 100,000 people. So I don't have any qualms of reaching the goal of getting a world record of 1,000 participants. Next. So yes, on the sponsorship. So I have chatted with, you know, people that I knew would keep it under wraps until we get the final approval, but I've already got sponsored for the official bean bags. Because that's 8 bags, so it works out to about $4,000. That one's already covered. For the team boards, again, having to spec, it costs about $300 for pro boards to be made. My thoughts are for those two, so it's Hard Knocks logo, it's a flower shop. Those boards cost about $300. They're gonna have their logo on them, they're professional boards, they'll have the Guinness logo on them. And then, so they purchase them for $300, that's their sponsorship. And then at the end of it, they get to take their boards home. That's how I'm gonna pitch getting the boards paid for. And then other things like the fencing, the porta potties, crowd control, security, and all the other logistics that go with it. Don't need to obviously get into those details now, but that is something, it's like, you know, that's kind of the support, not physical support, but maybe guidance of, yeah, it's who we've always used for fencing, might call them, that type of thing. It would have to be 18 plus because when you play cornhole, you tend to have a can in your hand. Might be Pepsi, but 10 to 1 is going to be a beer or spritzer. So, you know, that's, so then there's Hard Knocks Far and Oak players for like a mini beer gardens, wherever the cornhole tournament is taking place as well. So it becomes an 18 plus thing. Plus, I think it has to be over 18 if you're awarding that type of cash prize, regardless. Not that kids can't be spectators, as an example. So, final, so yeah, if I can get the town to say, yeah, let's continue talks, let's work on this, do this, this and this, then I'll run with it. And I've been chomping at the bit for 5 months to run with it, but I can't do it alone. And I absolutely will if I have to, but I don't want to. I want it to be a talent.
Okay, I'm sure we've got questions. So thank you. That's a lot of information.
I know.
There.
It's- I was trying to-
Okay, there. Don't go anywhere. I'll start there with Heather.
I think it's a really grand idea. It's like a lot of work to put it together. I just don't know that this year's the year that the town can move forward with something like that with the summer games and our staff.
Okay, oh, I've got September on. So I looked at all the other events. It won't be a summer thing because of the summer games. And that's why I spoke to the saying, listen, I know you guys are tapped out for your events and even just getting a town off the ground. But do the September lawn, so it doesn't interfere with any of that. And I'm not looking for your people. Season FYI.
You got more?
No,
Okay, we're gonna go.
I
Cindy.
was gonna ask
I
about
got
licensing,
some
too,
jotted
but I
down.
saw that come up.
Cindy?
Well, I disagree with everyone being able to play cornhole because you haven't seen me play cornhole. My son-in-law, I will enter him though. Yeah, I love the idea. I love the fact of it being something that the community can really rally around. I definitely do worry about, but you're saying we've got volunteers. It's such a fun game. I can just see easily you getting the 1,000 people. I just kind of wonder if you're maybe shooting too low on that, because
I can go bigger. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, we tapped out, because the bigger we get the record, the longer the valley is.
it's on there, yeah. And just the opportunity for businesses, because it sounds like you have some of them behind you.
Yeah.
That this could be, if we can play a small role in the background, and that the business community and, you know, our economic development, could be other people get behind this. I think we need to keep talking for sure. I really like the idea.
Hey,
Great presentation, Pam. Thank you very much. Really the next steps are is to get like $50,000 Canadian. Is that correct?
Pretty much. So like I say, I want to go back to Kelly and say, listen, okay, and she did say in her email, I've given you the creme de la creme. Because originally she's told me 20 to 35,000. And so I want to say, okay, what do we have to shave off to get this down to the 25,000? Just something that makes me even feel more comfortable. But yeah, so I can carry on with those conversations, but again, until I kind of said, okay, no, I think the town, if you get this lined up, the town will support this and will sign off. And I will bother them further if you like. She did tell me that most people for world records come to them with only 2 or 3 months in advance. So she said, oh God, you're so far ahead of the game. And so September, April, May, June, July, August. So I got, 5 months. So from their end, it's not a big deal.
Would you actually looking for cash from the town? Or would you be just for a letter of support?
Signing off on the contract, which I think is signing off on probably the liability and usage of the licensing of the logo. And that contractual type.
Like the
details.
town's logo?
No, the Guinness World Records logo, so the
Right.
licensing side of it. And then, if there was any funds obviously to put towards it that maybe gets reimbursed, I have spoken with Travel Alberta, Foothills Tourism, set all.
A lot of your.
Lots of seeds are all out there, but I can't, there's no sense wasting their time or mine for that matter, or anyone's, if you guys go it. You're out to lunch, Pam, take a hike, then, why get any deeper? So,
I think it would be nice to continue this conversation, Pam. And I think it would be wonderful to see an activity.
I think so. Thank you.
yeah, I think I like big thinking, and this is big thinking. So, yeah, I calculated 55 grand with exchange rate.
Yeah.
And there's a few other variables in there, they said would be included, but, at that rate, at 150 a team, you'd be hitting the mark, and then some, you could go right down to $50 a head, and then just breaking even.
Yeah.
Diamond Valley Chamber.
Yeah, so I spoke with Samantha.
Yeah.
Samantha, right? Yeah, I spoke with Samantha and Samantha's all over the place.
Yeah.
And she said that, well, let me talk about it after we've, because she's got something about the motorcycle. Yeah, she said, we're working on something big for up in that field. And so when I heard that, I thought, okay. Your headspace isn't gonna be here for this. But my Travel Alberta people are very excited. And I know Andy well, and, I've met most of them, and I've never actually done anything specific with them. They come to me every year, remind me that, they can match marketing dollars if you bring a proposal to them that they like. So I'm kind of confident that Travel Alberta or Alberta Tourism will come on board in some fashion, because they are so pushing the foothills, right? It's been there to their thing for the last few years, and it just keeps, again, the agritourism, everything, and it all kind of comes into our area.
So I was gonna say that I had a concern about your timeline being tour.
Yeah.
I would think you would want a year to prepare for something like this and really,
You gotta remember-
advertising is, well, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. if you're gonna line it up for September, I would suggest lining it up with our brewery's Oktoberfest, because that's +18. We close off the street over there, and that's gonna give you 600 people ready to drink and throw around a beanbag. So
Yeah.
just something to think about.
I did have, and on that note, Barry, I hadn't spoken with me because my initial thought, okay, so where do you do it? We don't have a lot of public land that you want people driving by being able to see all the Guinness World Record flags. So I thought of, well, the new ball diamond between the two towns, is there a field big enough there? Then we got the transportation thing back and forth. Okay, maybe we can figure that out. If there's a field there, because that's right, everyone would see it. Then I mentioned, well, my initial thoughts were, you do half the tournament over there by Flair and Derrick, half the tournament here in Black Diamond, up where you usually have the music festival last year, perhaps. And then once it got narrowed down, then Hard Knocks being the major sponsor, we do the final playoff at our beer garden, as an example. So that was one thought. Then Nate said, wow, with the logistics and certain what's allowed on these different things, that does not work.
So
So,
I think that's committee discussion. and
of course, I just want to kind of,
that type of stuff, but in principle, I like this idea. I think we need to have another conversation before we have a council motion, so that could come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But we need to have a full sit down. The other 3 councilors need to be involved. Some of the finer points need to be discussed. And then I think we can take it up here and either support it or not, but I think it's a great idea. So, totally looking forward. So let's set something up with, Renee and the city councilors. Right?
Sorry, through the chair, I have a question. It's a 2-part question. Do you know how many members of the 2 Alberta associations and membership of the?
I do not. I did reach out to the national one. They haven't got back to me. Other 2 local ones, I think are fairly big because like I say, in the craft beer industry, everyone's freaking doing cornhole tournaments. Hard not something to want, but, yeah, so I do not have that answer, but I am gonna find it.
Thank you. I'd like to just offer a few comments from our discussion. So I wanted to emphasize and reiterate that the town's very supportive of taking this further to do the research that's required. Obviously, there is going to be some challenges in terms of some of the logistics, and we also want to make sure that this is as risk-free as possible in terms of signing off on any kind of authority. However, we're more than happy to work with the Stipend to be able to at least explore this a little bit further and take this back to council.
Yeah, and I'll get more numbers and more, perhaps better number presentation and more details for you for the next meeting that we have.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's further conversation.
I like the idea. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, well, thank you. I will get you guys more details and hopefully that will be proof in the pudding that you pull this off. Great.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for all your time on this. Awesome. Okay. 8.2. We have Mr. Brad Whaling and Bruce. You can come on up too. And I think. Come on, Chris. What not?
Happy you might know, happy you might.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, for a long time.
There you go. Brad, you'll have to stand because you gotta get.
Stand.
Yells are next.
Hold it all day.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, Mr. Brass, you are here for the
Chair.
car show proposal. Tell us all about it.
Well, it's car show. Should be pretty simple. We like to think. You want to have the event hopefully down first. So we're looking for some road closures.
Right here on the map.
Hey, we got the map.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if that's my thumb marker or
Could be.
because he touched it up. So yeah, so we're looking for some road closures for Sunday, July 29th, 30th. I keep messing that
July
up.
30th.
Yeah, July 30th. We're gonna need some barricades and maybe possibly if we have some town assistance to install barricades, just simple plastic ones, cones, that kind of stuff. With that, yeah, we've reached out, we've got things in line as far as, you know, walking facilities, wash stations, garbage, got a hold of TNT, and they're gonna, at the moment, looks like they're gonna do a sponsorship towards it. We're gonna be looking at trying to implement a voucher in place for money spent in town. So it's a 1 day good voucher for Diamond Valley, so hypothetically, you say you come in, you got $20 fee, $10 of that fee will be returned in a voucher for 1 day only in Diamond Valley, so we're guaranteeing, say, a show of between 200 and 400 cars, so we have an average of a $3,000 potential back into the businesses of Diamond Valley. So, yeah, other than that, it should run pretty typical of how it did in past years in the same location. I think it would have been 5 years since the last one on that location due to COVID. And a semi-successful attempt up at school for 2019.
Right. Now, you three are all car enthusiasts, where I am not a car enthusiast. If mine goes A to B, I don't care how much gas it takes to just get to work, I'm good. What's the vision here in terms, are we looking at just old cars, or are we looking at, what are we looking at?
So your whole entire car enthusiast, whether it's from a Model T to a brand new Camaro, everything else in between, right? I think some of you have probably been to a car show, actually, like years. You know, whether it's an old fire truck or a new fire truck, it's a fire truck, right? It's, so it's.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, so basically, I've been out here now just over 30 years. We used to have in Turner Valley in Conoco Phillips land, right? We talked last year too, right? And
I wish we could accommodate.
we couldn't pull it off, but here we are this year, right? So then we looked, we formed an auto club in town here called the Diamond Valley Auto Club. We meet Friday nights up at the A&W, and the A&W supported it. We asked them ahead of time, can we come up here, park in the parking lot? And all of a sudden they got more business. They advertised it for us, which is cool. As well as Pam from Hard Knocks said if we didn't have any overflow, come over here. And now that we've amalgamated, we can have the first annual Diamond Valley show and shine, right?
Nice.
So the Lions Club, this is all benefiting the Lions Club. This doesn't benefit us at all. We want to put this all on, raise funds, it all goes to the Lions Club.
Lions Club will be our main spot, our Gold Star spots. And any profits from the sales of registrations and whatnot will go back to the Lions Club and they can use it in the community.
So we're not asking the town really for anything except for First Street, some barricades, and possibly a peace officer to show the presence. We're not asking for anything. We just want to put on the show and sign, raise some money for the Lions Club.
Okay, I got Cindy and I got Hazel.
Yeah, I'm happy and I love people that are volunteering their time and doing things like this. My only concern is letting residents along there know
Right.
that, you know, well in advance and who's going to take care of that.
Right.
So, but happy to, I'm assuming, public works to make sure it's very good as possible.
Because I know last time I went down first, there was an issue with garbage. So we Lions Club once again, and TNT will handle all the garbage. We'll have garbage and recycling all up and down first, as well as porta potties up and down first. Just because people were, being rude back in the day and leaving water bottles behind or some garbage behind. So we'll make sure that obviously doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's a permit process, like I don't know on the Black Diamond side or what Turner Valley or how those, what state the permitting process is, but there's probably something in there about public notification.
There is, so through the chair, yes, I'm happy to address that question, Councillor Holiday. So typically, we have currently separate, but as Diamond Valley, there exists now the Black Diamond and the Turner Valley special event processes. And it's a permit process, it's really simple. And it's really just describing what you've said tonight, but on paper, it outlines some routes, it outlines some request. And then what we do is add some conditions to it. So we say, yep, we're happy to help out where we can, and this is what they'll supply. And then also there's some conditions that are placed, such as notification of adjacent landowners. Where we have things such as bicycle races that go up, certain routes, then we ask them to have delivered to the actual household, so it could be a door knocker, it could be just a sheet of paper. We also assist at times with social media, so it's something that's advertised a little bit. And then we take that into consideration as well, so that people are aware and that there be an alternate route. So that anybody that they must have access to their property in some way. So as long as there's through traffic availability and also for emergency vehicles. And that's typically all we look for. Of course, cleanup and garbage disposal, all of those sort of standard conditions would be applied. But it's not usually anything that's that really getting from it.
And how soon do you need that? How soon do we need to notify property owners prior to decide going ahead?
It's typically 1 week that we ask prior, and that all the conditions are met at least 7 to 10 days, I believe. We'll just take a look at that. So hopefully it's not unreasonable and it's something well in advance. There might be proof of insurance, for example, if you're hosting the event. And then any of the costs that would be incurred as a consequence of the event would be yours to bear. And again, it doesn't sound like it would be anything that would be excessive. The rest of it, depending on it, we'd have a meeting or two, whatever it takes to be able to work with you to find out what your specific needs are. And then we'd be able to assign staff where required as well. So it'd be public works, municipal enforcement. I certainly would be involved in that community services piece of it. And then help you coordinate where the.
So,
Spare holiday, that's my question, but I thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys bringing back the partial. I think it's great, and I really like your idea of where participants can go each of us or use the $10 that we're, getting our economy going.
Revenue into the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all my questions are answered as well. July 30th, just to be clear, 2023. What time to what time?
Doesn't have to say 7 AM. I mean, the fire show itself would probably so long as about 10 to 4, but to let participants in from 7 AM to 4 PM.
Sign up's typically 8 o'clock. Right, so sign up, so it'd be 8 to 4 safe number, and then that gives us time for setup in the morning and clean up after that.
Before, and Craig, obviously barricade stuff we have.
Nickelback's playing at 5.
I'll stay at 6.
All right, so really then all we need for you guys to move forward is to secure this date through council to say that this event is off.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we can have that date. Heather?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to go forward with this again. Bill Price was a big fella in this. He got this going for years and years and years. And so it's also getting it going again and having it move forward in our community is kind of a tribute to Bill as well. So I think it's wonderful.
Okay.
And as far as the date goes, I think that could be coordinated through Nick and the road closures and all that. So I think meetings with Nick would be the direction that you would be given and we go forward with that. Great to see this come back. Really great.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, so just to be clear for administration, we have a council motion authorizing this date because we will need to do public notifications, or we got time to do that.
We're just Christmas.
They do the application. Yeah, I don't know that. Personally, I don't think there's more than.
No, that's no. Well, it's just that they did. The date changed. So.
That's
good. Okay, no, that's fine.
it's in the hands of the man now.
Good. Okay, excellent. Okay. Excellent. All right, delegations. Well, that is the largest delegations in 10 years on council. There you go. In one go. All right. We're going to move on to bylaws and policies. 9.1 is bylaw 2023-12, the advertising bylaw. Where did we see that, people? All right. Let me just click here. And do we have any recommendations here, Councilor Mulder?
I'll give you a motion and then I'll speak to it.
Thank you.
The council give bylaw 2023-12 advertising bylaw second reading. As we just had our public hearing, not much interest in it. This makes a small change. First glance, 2 weeks down to 1 week. I think it still works, and I'm supportive of this because for businesses, red tape, or developers, anybody, sometimes you hit those weird deadlines where you have to wait to get to the next paper, and then it's 2 weeks, and then scheduling the next council meeting, that this time gets extended. So anything we can do to make things more efficient and faster. And we do have lots of digital and other options. I'm happy with it. Even the 1 week. So I'm happy.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Hazel, would you like to speak to it?
No, I think it was all.
And
I think everything's been just.
I think Cindy clarified it quite well. We've beaten this around a couple of times. We made slight changes with the access to social media and the increased communication in the public in general. I'm easy with 1 week, and it's not to say that we use 1 week. We can always stick with our standard 2. It just gives us an extra ability if we need it. Motion on the floor for second reading, correct? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And Heather, would you like to seal the deal for Hazel?
I sure can.
All right.
The council, give bylaw 2023-12 third and final reading.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. That one in the books. All right, moving on, 9.2, land use bylaw amendment 2023-16 for first reading. Now, Rob, is where I was supposed to call you. All right. And I assume you are definitely going to speak to it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I want to speak briefly on it.
Excellent, thank you.
Ernie, can you scroll down to where the maps are?
Yay.
We've got an application to amend the land use bylaw, the land use bylaw that was adopted by the town of Black Diamond. The parcel is located on First Avenue Southeast in the former town of Black Diamond, just opposite the 2 apartment buildings that are located on the south side of Highway 7 out of Importance.
South.
Yeah, south side of First Avenue. So the site is currently districted as urban reserve. And Ernie, can you scroll down to the another map? Yeah, keep going. You do one. There we go. Okay, that's shows you the site. You can see what's on it. I think it's approximately about 1.5 acres in area, and there's a dwelling located in the northeast corner of the parcel. And the proposal is to subdivide out a lot for containing the existing dwelling. And so it's necessary to redistrict that portion of the site from urban reserve to R1 to allow for a subdivision application to be brought forward. So only a portion of the site is being redistricted. The remainder will remain as urban reserve. The site is located within the area of the Kaiser Area Structure Plan. The long-term vision for this area in that plan is for these acreages to be redeveloped to medium density residential. So the thought is, townhouses kind of density, roughly 10 to 15 units per acre. But there's a lot of these existing dwellings that have values. So the thought is to create a parcel containing the existing dwelling at this time, and then when a proposal was brought forward for the balance, then a redesignation of the balance could happen at that time. So Yeah, this is being brought forward for first reading to set a date for a public hearing. And it's been the practice of both communities in the past to not provide a great deal of information at first reading. It's typically done at the time of a public hearing, and then the public can make representations, and the applicant can speak to the application, get full staff report, and then council can deliberate after receiving all that information. So before council right now is to set a date for a public hearing. Representing a public hearing be held on May 3rd.
Okay, questions, council?
So it's the resident that's putting forward the application to change the zoning,
Yes, well, the owner.
the owner of the whole entire parcel?
No, the proposal is to rezone.
No, I mean, this, the owner owns that whole entire parcel, or is it? Or just that portion that you're changing?
It's all one parcel.
Right,
The intention is to subdivide.
okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to get clear in my head, thank you. Because my question is, why would we go through this whole process again if the intent down the road is to change it from UR to R1? So then why wouldn't we do it all at the same time? Because there's gonna be costs to go through this whole process again. So is there a reason why we couldn't just do it all now?
If I may, through the chair.
Yeah.
The balance of the site, it could be rezoned to R2 or R3 or even direct control, depending on what type of development is proposed for the site in the future. So there are parties that are interested in, they're currently exploring development concepts for that site. So until they have something concrete, we don't know what exactly to district it.
Okay.
So we thought is to leave it as urban reserve for the time being until more concrete proposals brought forward, and then we'll know how best to district the main.
That makes sense.
Okay, Cindy.
Yeah, I was on MPC and I didn't know that you could actually have two zonings on one site. And so we had a lot of these same questions. But I'm assuming, thinking about this afterwards, that if for some reason a sale doesn't go through, you are probably for tax purposes, it's gonna be assessed differently than if we rezone the whole thing to R1 or I don't know if there's a reason that way. Why UR might be better to hang on to. I get that they don't know what they're gonna do, so you can't change it now. But I'm assuming UR is just easiest and probably best. Leave it as. But I think the concept is to have a single family house on a single family size lot absolutely makes sense. So I support the R1 for the houses. And if they're not asking for UR and we're allowed to have two zonings, then.
It's on the same property.
Yeah,
It's on the same parcel.
yeah. My mind's on. Yeah.
Rod, will there need to be any changes to the Kaiser area structure plan to create this R1 parcel?
I don't believe so, no. The area structure plan, it's outlines a vision for the future land uses. There's flexibility within the plan to accommodate a variety of housing types. With the idea is that, in that portion of the plan area, it will be predominantly a density of 15 units per acre. So a single family parcel is lower density, but the intent is that, overall, looking broadly at the plan, the average density would be within what's okay to what we're targeting.
So Rod, just so that I'm clear of where this location is that First Avenue southeast? All the way back to in that green space, that's labeled as the Kaiser area structure.
Yeah, yes, through the chair, the Kaiser structure plan, is roughly speaking, the area east of the, what we call the drainage ditch, the Kaiser ditch. Maybe we need to come up with a better term for it. So all that undeveloped land, on the east side of.
Okay. Thank you.
And mostly for me, all the questions that I want can only be answered at the public hearing, which is why I'm supportive of bringing forward. I was at the MPC meeting. I think there's some relevant, makes sense opportunities here, but also some question marks around the Kaiser development plan. I'd love to hear the applicant's answers and have staff report. So I'm in favor of moving it to a public hearing. And with that said, I'll give council the motion to hold a public hearing for bylaw 2023-16 on May 3rd. And to provide notice.
We need first reading first.
First reading and then.
Indeed, we do. Do you have to take that first then?
Yeah, give you a motion, to approve first reading of land use bylaw amendment 2023-16.
Perfect. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Excellent. Now I'll give it to you. The council agreed to hold public hearing, bylaw 2023-16 on May 3rd and provide notice. The public hearings in the April 19th and 26th editions of the Western Wheel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Question.
One more question, go ahead.
This is just a general, because we're amending the Black Diamond land use bylaw. I had thought that because we're amalgamated, we couldn't touch old ones until we came up with a new land use bylaw, but that's not correct. Okay, I just had that.
Okay.
If I might clarify.
Yes, sir.
A little bit too, land use bylaws are specific to specific pieces of land.
Yeah.
They stay inactive until such time as they're rescinded or replaced, so. This bylaw can be amended.
We're allowed to amend the old
Absolutely.
one, and it's still called the
Yeah.
Black Diamond land use bylaw.
Just like we were talking about direct control every day as well. So in the last entry season.
Okay, excellent. That one's carried. 9.2 is complete. Moving on to 9.3, bylaw 2023-20 to establish the Town of Diamond Valley Assessment Review Board. You know what? This one is so good, and Lisa explained so well in the email to me. I should just read it out, but I won't. Who wants this one? Shine wants to handle this and then move it over to our fire chiefs here.
You're rolling tonight. Nice hearing the fire chief.
No, I'm talking the assessment review board, which is basically the whole nine. Yeah. Or is that the other one that you talked to me?
Good grief.
Okay, there we go.
Review, that's where we are. I think.
Mr. Sean,
Okay,
over to you.
so I may have Lisa weigh in on this, but this is really a redo of the bylaw to establish the assessment review board. We partner in a joint regional assessment review board. Lisa, there's CARBs and there's our ours. Local assessment review boards are composite assessment review boards. So we were affiliated previously with a group of municipalities as separate entities of Turner Valley and Black Diamond. First, we're now in Diamond Valley. We need to redo the bylaw to facilitate the development of any potential review boards that we may have in the future for any assessment issues that we may run into. Lisa has done great work on this, so I'm going to let her finish the conversation and discuss the updating of the agreement, et cetera. So, or the updating of the bylaw, pardon me.
Over to you, Lisa.
If I may, through the chair, thank you for your patience. This is a housekeeping item. We need to put this in place, as you know, the assessments have gone out for our new community. So the potential for receiving complaints is now open. Currently, we do not have any local board members, which makes the agreement that I'm asking council to authorize the mayor and CAO to sign off on very pertinent, because it gives us access to board members in case we do have to host a hearing in the near future. A pretty straightforward bylaw. It's mandated by the MGA, of course, so we have to have this in place. And review information. It just made good sense once I contacted the city of Airdrie, who is the host city and coordinator of the joint regional pool. And they suggested, because they would have to remove Black Diamond and Turner Valley, put in Diamond Valley, if they were just gonna redo the whole agreement, update it. It's over 10 years old. So it does need a few tweaks, which they've done quite well. I read the agreement. I did provide it to council, so you can do a comparison with the previous one that we need one. Other than that, you have 3 certified clerks. You have no board members. The clerk in municipality that receives a complaint will be in charge of the hearings. Any questions?
Typically, how many times in a year would the board meet to hear the concerns?
The board does not meet unless there is a hearing. The process for complaints for assessments, usually what we do is if we are contacted from a taxpayer and they don't believe their assessed value on their property, they don't agree with it, they can speak. We usually suggest they speak to the assessor first, just to ensure that it's been properly reviewed and evaluated. If they feel that they cannot get any satisfaction through the assessor, the next step is to file a formal complaint. At that time, the municipality receives the complaint. We contact the joint regional board and we set up the hearings. Depending on the date that we receive the complaint, we have a process that is mandated by the province that we have to follow regarding dates, submitting information and settlement agreement and whatnot. So they don't meet unless we actually receive complaints. To my knowledge, there haven't been complaints in the past couple of years. I know there was none in Turner Valley last year.
10 or more on the Turner Valley side, and
Previous.
probably here, it's been 10 years since we went through that as well.
Right.
Yeah, so it doesn't happen very often. The assessor does a great job in working
obviously.
with people, so, yeah, so, but you still have to have this in place, legally, we have to, so.
It's provincially mandated. You have to.
So maybe as a bit of support on that as well, a few years ago, not many, the province initiated a requirement for members of assessment review boards to be certified and trained, which made it challenging for small municipalities to get board members. And so a lot of communities have now gone to regional boards to access those people that have taken the training from a pool, to be able to facilitate those types of hearings.
Yeah, I've got a couple. So Heather,
Another thing too, I've heard a question, I believe, or saw something regarding why are there no counselors on an ARB board? And the reason for that, I believe, and the same reason when Turner Valley and Black Diamond joined together for this is, when we did go through an assessment review board hearing, it's really hard on counselors because they can be called out to be biased. And so it was a lot of communities across the province no longer have counselors sitting on an ARB board. It's members at large. And so that's the reason is to get away from that accusation of being biased towards. Yeah.
And if I may through the chair, council is allowed under the MGA to appoint one council member, no more, that's all. So as Councillor Thompson explained, most municipalities are moving away from that because it does put a counselor in a potentially not good situation.
So that's why.
Excellent. Call up, Hazel.
Mine is just under the definition section where they say a provincial member means a person appointed as a provincial member to be to a composite assessment review board. Who deems a person to be a provincial member?
If I may through the chair. We have a land tribunal that looks after all of these types of hearings. A composite review board is a higher level than a local, as Mr. Patience mentioned, the LARBs and the CARBs. The local assessment review board is at a smaller level, so it deals with residentials and farmland. When you get to the composite review board, it's more for your commercial properties, your multi-dwellings, so fourplexes, apartment buildings, any industrial, commercial mixed use. So it's a higher level of a hearing, and those board members they're usually, they're very well experienced in dealing with these types of hearings, so they have to have that higher level of experience and confidence to be able to conduct it in an appropriate manner.
Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent.
And further to that, with being on a joint or a regional, entering into this contractor agreement, we have close neighbors, Okotoks, that have a lot of carb hearings. So those members, if we ever had a carb hearing, we could draw from that expertise by being a part of this greater board or a greater agreement.
Yeah.
So if I may through the chair, so you have two separate entities. You have your bylaw that establishes your board, which includes your local and your composite review boards. So they're two separate entities, but they're under the umbrella of your municipality assessment review board. Then you have your agreement that allows us to access regional board members. There's mine.
Okay, so what is our first one, Cindy?
The council gave first reading to bylaw 2023-20 to establish the town of Diamond Valley Assessment Review Board as presented.
Excellent. Any further comments? Makes sense. All in favor? Excellent. I will take a second.
Okay, so council get second reading to bylaw 2023-20.
Any further? All in favor? Now, we don't have a full complement, so I am curious. Is it still just unanimous?
This is housekeeping.
Still just unanimous, right?
This is basic housekeeping, so I think it'll.
Yeah, in that case, I will give the council agree to consider third and final reading for bylaw 2023-20 at this meeting. You think? All in favor? That is carried unanimously. And now.
Give me third.
Yep.
The council gives third and final reading to bylaw 2023-20.
Going once. Going twice. All in favor? And that is carried. Excellent. And thank you for the email. That was good. Yeah, no, we're gonna do the authorization here too, but thanks for the email follow-up and explanation as well. That was very well. Good. Okay, Heather?
That council authorized the mayor and CAO to enter into an agreement with the municipal partners of the Joint Regional Assessment Review Board.
Excellent, and that is exactly what we just finished discussing and asking questions about. So, there's no further comments. All in favor? That is carried. Beth?
That council directed administration to advertise for ARB numbers.
Okay, we also addressed that through discussion, referencing not having counselors on there for 30 and consideration. All in favor? And I'll give the council consider alternate director. No, just kidding. We're good. We're good. All right. Another one to the show. Okay, procurement policy and procedures, finance 000. That's 2 zeros, 03. I'm gonna go over to our incoming Corinne Middleton on this one.
You're in. Hey.
So, good evening and thank you, Ms. Mayor. So the procurement policy originally was drafted, or this particular policy was drafted a few years ago by the town of Turner Valley, and we haven't made any modifications to it since it was originally put into play, I believe, in 2019. But what we tried to do in 2019 was we tried to develop a policy that was in line with best practices, which covered off not only some of the things from a regulatory and legislative perspective that we were required to do, but also modernize it a little bit more. It resulted in a more transparent policy, which really reflected things like going out for tender and being very clear on what we would go out for tender for, having that rigorous process in place that would really ensure that when the town was going out and procuring or having large construction projects, that we ensured that residents were getting the best deal with those particular projects, but not only it was very clear on those individuals that could come forward and put through tenders, and that they would get the opportunity to submit, and that it was fair and equal for all. So this is kind of just building on what had been developed. Black Diamond had a policy in place, but it hadn't been revised, if I'm not mistaken, for a number of years.
That's correct, if I may. The policy was more focused on internal, like everyday purchasing. And then the tendering committee was set up to handle the larger things, and that was rescinded in 2022.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is just kind of building on that philosophy. So there is some new information that has been circulated, and I do understand that there were questions regarding some of the new policy language. But certainly I think this is just an expansion on what we previously had and making sure that it is robust.
All right,
Yeah.
so let's go to our questions, because I know Heather got it.
Yeah, so so this is a procurement purchasing policy. So what I'm questioning is why we have in this type of policy, things like change in scope. Change in scope to me is a contract. It doesn't refer to a request for proposal or a request for quote or tendering. Things like change order, that's specific to a contract. I like the collaborative opportunity, the competitive bid process, which is new, the contingency. But the contingency also refers to contract, a signed contract. It doesn't refer really to the purchase or procurement of something. Contract extension, again, that's contract. So those kind of things I think don't belong in our purchasing policy. I strongly think that they should be, if we're gonna have those guidelines, they should be in maybe a contract policy or something like that. But in our actual purchasing policy, that's to get proper quotes and bids and proposals and tendering packages. So we don't have a signed contract when we're putting out for those. So I don't believe that belongs in here. Things like standing agreements, that's an agreement. That's not anything to do with the purchasing, actually. When it comes down to it, you'll sign an agreement after you get an RFP that you accept. Substantial compliance, that's, again, that belongs to contract and contract law. The contract execution renewal options, again, contract and contract law. So that's the only thing that really, there's lots of this is really great, and that's really has been moved up. But I don't agree with the contract material being in the purchasing policy, procurement policy.
Okay, before we go there, I'm gonna go to Cindy, just get it all on board now.
Well, I just want to respond to that, because that's in the procedure. So we have the policy and then we have the procedure. So those things are more just to guide, because procedure guides town staff, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think that they're okay to have,
They're not related.
but to still define what those are and to have, you know, a common, because those are just definitions, so to have a common language for staff.
I don't agree because they're regarding contract, they're not regarding purchasing.
Yeah, but
And
contracts
there's
are
so
part of
much that
purchasing
goes
for the
with
town.
contract as far as contract law goes. So I just don't agree with it. I think this is a purchasing and procurement policy. It should go RFP, your request for quotes. How are you gonna grade those quotes, et cetera? You know, like.
Oh, I'm gonna throw it in
Your
the bus.
request for proposal, yeah, I just. I don't agree with it.
No, I'll shield you for a bit.
Yeah, not for long though. I understand Councillor Thompson's comments. However, as Councillor Holiday points out, and I actually thought Lisa did really quite a good job on this.
Oh, I'm not saying she didn't,
No,
but
so the procedures are to assist staff in procurement of goods and services. And part of procurement is contractual obligations and how you deal with those contractual obligations. So these guidelines assist the management staff, or would assist the management staff, in dealing with contractual issues that there may be perhaps not expertise or don't have expertise in. So I will also say that large projects, you know, you'll typically have an engineer, sometimes even legal, that will assist you with some of those issues, but on smaller ones, there can be issues, and these just provide a guideline for management staff to be able to deal with issues that come up as part of contracts for either goods or services. So they're a guideline for staff. So I'm ambivalent to them, but Lisa, would you like to add anything to it? Since she did all the work on this particular piece.
If I may, through the chair.
Please.
I did a lot of research with different municipalities. I did contact, municipal affairs, or not municipal, pardon me, Alberta Munis, because you can ask them questions with their legal department and whatnot, because that I understand Councillor Thompson's concerns. However, having said that, I know it's a rather onerous policy. It's not a little one, but I wanted to make sure that we covered all the bases, because we don't want to see the municipalities being biased. We need to establish a fair and comprehensive method of dealing with contract or finding services, purchasing goods, and setting up for capital projects. Well, part of that does involve contracts at the end of the day. Having a separate contract policy, I did research that as well. Most municipalities do not have that. At least none of the ones I've seen myself. And I did contact a few of my colleagues as well, just because this is something new for us. The policy that the town of Turner Valley had, I won't say it was totally outdated, but some things have changed since it was last drafted. And we can change it. It's not set in stone. We just felt that it would be better to have everything that you need when you are securing procurement, whether it be for a big capital project, whether it be for a standing agreement for a good service provided from a professional, i.e. your auditors, your assessors or whatnot, just so that it's all in one document. So you're not looking here, there, there. Ease of finding information that you need to have when you're securing this is how we.
Okay, anything further from admin side?
I'd like to,
Yeah, please.
thank you through the chair. And I'd just like to throw an example of where contract and service agreements comes into play for administration. It's not a regular thing where we make procurement arrangements this way, but a great example would be our partnerships with Foothills County or or with Okotoks with our service agreements. A lot of those are generally just contracts. They're not, they don't go out for tender because it's a municipal partnership. So it's a guiding document that helps us through some of those steps too.
And Heather.
Thanks, Craig. That explains a bit, but you know, like we have limits on the purchase limits and procedures, and a lot of the contracts come back to council to approve. So, I mean, we would get, for some of the big contracts, et cetera, we would get a legal opinion on them. And I just, this is very onerous and very onerous for staff as well. These procedures are yours. And I don't agree that the contract side of it should be in a purchasing policy. The contract comes after you purchased it. And whether it's with Foothills County or whoever, it's something you negotiate. And when you're doing things with the county, there's a whole, or another municipality, there's a whole other step that you have to go through to negotiate those contracts. I just strongly don't think that stuff should be in this procurement and policy. It is very onerous.
Any further debate?
My one comment is, I like to see that you put some green in there, a section on green purchasing. I do like that idea. Thank you very much for doing that and stuff.
Well, there's lots of good stuff in it. I'm not saying that like it's updated. I just don't agree with the contract stuff putting in here. These contracts are negotiated after you get the RFP, et cetera, or if you're working with another municipality, it's just, it's. And the rules are there, the purchase limits and the procedures for that. So I'd like to see this come back when all of council is here, because I think it's kind of an important one.
Cindy?
I like it having all in one document, and if there's anywhere to be onerous, I think purchasing is
Yeah, but it's
protecting taxpayer dollars
Yeah.
is one of them.
Yeah.
So I like it how it is. I just have questions more on standing agreements. That's what I always worry about. So in there's 6, I think it's in the procedure part of it, section 6. It's 3 to 5 years. Have we always done 3 to 5 years? I thought we did 3, but 5 years has been done in the past.
Our assessor agreement, for instance, have been 5-year terms.
They have been 5. Okay, I just want to check
I
that.
I wouldn't say all of them count for holiday, but we certainly do.
We have done up to
Yeah.
5. Okay, I didn't know if that was still going on. I was just wondering if somewhere in the section, you mentioned it later on about being not exclusive, but I'm just wondering if somewhere in this section 6, we should make it apparent or make a line in there about that we can have standing agreements with, say, more than one legal company, more than one engineering company, more than one bank, that kind of thing. That we're not, we don't just have one standing agreement with one type of service. I didn't know if that should be in there or not. It does mention something about non-exclusive later on. But just wondering if that should be in there.
If I may, through the chair.
Yes, please.
6.4 gives a little bit of wiggle room. It reserves the discretion to determine which designated services will be subject to a standing agreement, which means that you can expand that. You can have 2 legal services conducting business under the municipality. There are some services you only want one, your auditors, your assessors, engineering firms, you can have 2, maybe 3, depending on how many projects you have on the go. So I
Yeah, I'm
think
just
you're
wondering if
not,
that should
you're
be
not limited.
more clear, like that we should specific, like, I get it and I know it as a counselor, but somebody else reading it to know that. I don't know, maybe all of it.
Well, I think that you wouldn't you may not enter into a standing agreement with 2 engineering firms. You might, well, you can.
Yeah.
But you might not want to for 3 years because it might be project specific, right? So that's kind of where Lisa is going to the discretion to determine. Right? So you might want to use, say, MP for a portion of a project and urban for another, but you might not want to.
I just know that this was something that I, as a counselor, didn't know for sure the first year. It took me at least a year to know that. I think it was when I was on Foothill Cemetery and they were getting like different backhoe companies to dig out whatever. I'm like, you can have more than one? Cause I thought when you have standing agreement, it could just be one. So that's, I think more just as an education piece, coming from the council angle, it's important to know that you can't have one, but it's not necessary, but I think it would have been helpful for someone like me. And the only other thing I had is I remember when we did this policy before and I worried about price. So page 69 of 146, about price not being weighted enough. So page 69, when it gives the table of the award criteria.
That purchase.
Evaluation and award contract, it's section 6 of request for proposal, page 5. It's just page 6 of 149, 146 of my back, page 69.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
that price is given a weighting of 30%, which we're always supposed to go with the lowest bidder is what I thought, but I know there is some flexibility that we're not, and we don't have to, but generally we're supposed to be price sensitive. And it seems like when you say 30%, I don't know if there's a standard or a rule, and this is how everybody does it. But to me, it sounds like, oh, price isn't that big of a deal. I can come in based on my excellent experience and charge you twice as much, right? That it makes it feel like we're open to gouging at 30%. So I wanted to question that.
If I may through the chair. This is just an appendices. We can change those numbers depending on what our staff or what type of a proposal they're requesting. Some may want to have prices a higher evaluation. This is just a guideline.
So
These
can we
are not-
delete the scoring
can
percentage
adjust-
so we don't have people think that this is the way it's gonna go and just leave those percentages blank and then it's done?
These are just a template.
Okay, so it's
So
just
these
template blank.
These templates can change. This is the standard,
Says example.
Yeah, it says example.
standard example.
And maybe I can weigh in here. So we did a number of RFPs and RFQs during the amalgamation process for human resource services, for branding services, et cetera, We did change the criteria based on the element that we were advertising for. So when you post on ATC, you post the criteria so that people can apply, knowing that it might not be the lowest price. And I will say on both those instances I mentioned, it was not the lowest price we took, but the credentials of the companies that were involved were highly recognized in the awarding process. For obvious reasons, right?
Right, so it's good to know that it changed because I didn't actually know that, but this is all that council sees. We don't see those awards and those contracts and how it's worked out in the past. This is just the document that we see. So I would suggest, yes, it says example, let's leave it blank for percentages.
Or make it clear
Or
that
make it-
this is, yeah.
Like X%. You know what I mean? Don't give anybody an idea that price is only 30% of the.
She's worried about money here. I'm talking money, right?
So,
There would be certain things where the price could be 80 or 90%, and if it's a product
Yeah.
that's mass manufactured by several individuals, then price becomes the specific requirement, right? So how about if we bolded the word example only?
Or I could put an asterisk at the bottom of that table saying, these are.
I just like an X percent works for me.
These percentages may be adjusted accordingly, depending on the project.
Yeah, whatever. I'm just happy with
That's
an
what you
X%.
Because it is an example, so.
Yeah.
And that's the standard that I found across the board. And this is what we had in our previous policy as well.
Right. Essex, and then just put a line that says adds up to 100% at the bottom, then you don't have to fill in any of those, if it's just out of 100% at the bottom. That's fine. So is there any, in the, one more question, is there anything, so if you have a standing agreements are my thing, with a contractor, that they recommend we undertake a project is, you know, a day-to-day advice, you know, they consult and advise us and say, you should do this. And then they get to bid and come back and bid on said thing that they've recommended us do. What do we have to prevent that in our policy?
If I may, standing agreements are for professional services. I don't know of an instance, maybe Craig or Rod or fire chief may know of something that has. They would still be evaluated the same as anybody else. It is up to your department managers, and it is their responsibility that if they feel that this is a necessity, then they will go forward with it. If they feel it's just, do we really need this at this time? Is it in our budget? That's, you know, that's their decisions to decide if you're going to move forward with this recommendation or suggestion or not. I mean, if you have a failed pipe or that needs to be replaced, of course you have to deal with it. Maybe your engineer who you have under contract suggests doing it one way. Well, no, if we have a bidding process, this is the way it goes. And it may not go to them. I don't know how
you haven't seen anything out there that addresses this in your research.
Craig?
Through the chair, Councillor Allen, no, I have, but not since probably 2016 anyways. Because we did secure, I think where that happens is if you have contractors in place without a scope. So if they've got a very open scope of responsibility, you can fall into that trap, I think. I think generally when we have SOAs in place, it's specific to their specialty. And the SOA is really intended for us to utilize a service that we frequent and we require services from them. It's not to say that they don't consult from time to time, but we already know we have a problem and we're asking for expertise on how to resolve an issue. So I don't really have a valid example currently that we would have an SOA in place where they have that open scope to recommend and then equally bid on that work.
I agree that we should pass this, like not pass this tonight.
Yeah, we'll bring it to all accounts.
Oh, you know.
There's no rush to get this one dusted in 2 weeks, is it?
So to address your question, I would suggest we want to get this done sooner rather than later, because as we advance and we get the capital side of our budget reviewed and signed off, this particular policy and procedure will start to be impactful in how we want to do business.
It's easy to come back, I guess, and one of the other councilors have an issue. Well, let's just
Yeah.
pass it then.
I mean, I can hear Heather's concern. Same point, a little more information is not necessarily bad in my opinion. It's there, but it's not bad. It doesn't distract them from the goal of the deal with the policy. So I'm okay to move ahead with it.
Just to address your question further, Mayor Craig, we're still going through and following a lot of the policy that currently exists. So it's not like we don't have anything that we can refer to. We do have a document that we can refer to, and it's still a good piece of legislation. This just increases that a little bit further. So although it's nice to get these policies through, because then we can knock another one off the list, because there's lots of them. If there is a little bit of heartburn as to passing it this evening, we still have a policy that we can work with, and it's good legislation.
Will administration be preparing any requests for proposal or proposals in the near future, like for auditors and that sort of thing?
So through the chair, yes, we will. We have a couple of items that are coming up that we do want to get to fairly quickly.
That'll have to be another reason to.
Yeah.
To move ahead with this. Okay.
We are going to reconvene at 8:33. A little under than 5 minutes, but that's okay. We only have one more question regarding 9.4 procurement policy and procedures. Very detailed question, I must say. Councillor Cindy, make sure it's very clear so everyone can understand it.
Why does the RFP close at 2 p.m. and 59 seconds? The page before that page you were on, 4.1.
RFP will close at 1400 hours and 59 in Alberta time on this day.
That was in the original policy, but we left it in there, and of course, because that again is a template, you can change that to 4 o'clock, you can change it to 12 noon, whatever you like.
This template thing's getting me, you know.
I didn't draft that.
I think that came from Richard Beltran. So it is.
You like things exact to the 59 seconds. That's why he's an engineer, I'm not.
I think it's I think it's industry practice, actually. I think
Is that
too, and it doesn't have to do with the time zones. Yep.
Yeah. Catching all the time zones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you say 4 p.m. About my standard time of working. 6 o'clock, Eastern time. It's only 1 o'clock. So it's ended.
Yeah. Yeah.
5:30 and.
Yeah, 15 seconds. All right.
We don't stop, we don't stop. See, always says 30 minutes later, but that's not. I'm gonna give a motion that we postpone this decision until the April 19th, so we'll bring it back to the April 19th meeting for the same. Is that okay? All in favor of that? Excellent, there you go. Well, the full house then. Okay. Bylaws policies are done. Action items, 2023 operating budget version 1. Okay, thinking has on. Access paperwork out of the way. And this Middleton.
It's up to you, whatever you want.
Yeah, you can take the floor wherever you wish.
I think it's easier, there's a little bit more light.
And thank you all, managers, for being here as well.
Thank you, so.
Yeah, awesome, okay. There.
You'll be up here for.
Leave up for action. I think.
So thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to present our first draft, and you had already thanked Mayor Crane. I want to thank them too as well for all being here, because they, I could not be up here presenting on behalf of the town if they were not part of this process. So this is our first budget. Just to highlight a couple of things, I've provided 3 documents. So I provided the breakdown by object, which is how we put together our financial results on a quarterly and monthly basis. I've also provided a document with this unit, and within the document by object, I've provided some variance analysis. A couple of key things, and really what I I'm not speaking for management, but we all kind of are sharing the same thoughts this evening, is we really just want to get an idea from council as to what you want us to take back. So, the highlight really is on the revenue side with property taxes. So as you notice, there's about $1 million increase in our tax revenue. And this represents administration taking all of the assessments into income. So that's about 12.3% on the residential side and about 6.9% on the non-residential side. So it ends up being somewhere around 16 to 17%. So we've captured all of that dollar value into that tax budget line. So what does that mean? Well, when you see the bottom line where you see we have a surplus of just over 400,000, that is how we've been able to capture that surplus. So although we look at it and go, that looks fantastic and that looks great, there is sure that administration is not expecting that we're going to be able to take all of that tax assessment amount and update the mill rate to reflect that. So it is a little bit complicated. We have two different tax rates. Currently, Black Diamond's residential tax rate is slightly less than ours in Turner Valley side. And on the non-residential side, Black Diamond's mill rate is higher than the Turner Valley mill rate. So what we did was we ran some scenarios and we've taken the higher rates of both the residential. So we've taken the higher rates that exist in Turner Valley, and we've taken the higher rate for non-residential that exists in Black Diamond. So the number that you see here for tax reflects all of the tax assessment increase plus the higher rates that exist for each of the communities. So we have quite a large impact there. So that's on the revenue side. The rest of the revenue pieces are really, there's nothing in there that's really substantial. You're seeing some big reserve draws. That is basically reflective of the remainder of the amalgamation money. So that's about over $300,000 is really reflected there. And the other revenue is just carrying on business as usual as one community. So there's not too many things that are impactful. On the expense side, we have a couple of items on the expense side that we have to be aware of. West End on the sewer side is the requisition was about $343,000 more than the prior year. So what you see in sewer is it's not a full cost recovery anymore. That particular utility is losing money and losing a lot of it. So we have to cover that in some way. If we can't cover it off with the utility itself, it's going to have to come from taxes. So that's the reality. And the other thing that we've done, which I know is a bit of a different philosophy from Black Diamond's budget process, is I've tried to dial down the reserve draws and then transferring to reserve to see what that pure number is in the particular business units and how much money they're either making or they're losing. So from there, we can build up on where we want to move reserves around if we need to move reserves in. But as it stands today and what we're looking for, administration is looking for is directionally, what kind of tax increase would administration be putting into the budget? We can go anywhere, of course. This is a year where we have access to a huge tax assessment increase. So we can really go anywhere, 4, 5, 6. We have a lot to work with here because of those assessments being up so high. And the other thing is being the first year of amalgamation, we know that there are some incremental costs where for the most part, we believe that we can cover off a lot of them in the amalgamation reserves that we've drawn, which is the $325,000 plus we have the 250,000 that we've been granted from the provincial government. So we have about $560,000 of money that's specifically for the amalgamation. Keep in mind, we're eating it up fairly quickly. So we have a couple of incremental things, one-offs that are gonna happen. But directionally, we're looking for is really what does council want to see? Do they want us to go back and cut a lot of costs and bring back a skinnier bottom line? Or is council comfortable with the potential that we could have a 3.5%, maybe 4.5%, 5% tax increase? And if we have a guideline for that tax increase, it will give us the capability to go back and work on some of these numbers. But the tax increase is really the big one that we would like direction on. And then administration, we can go back and we can look at our budgets and work within some sort of number that is comfortable for council.
Cindy?
So for me, if you take what West End and the increase in West End and what our surplus is, you know, using the tax numbers you have, that pretty much equals the tax. So we've just gone through an amalgamation process and we've told everyone that it will save us money. So then to increase their taxes goes against that message. So that's tough for us politically as council, when the fact of the matter is that our problem this year is West End. And that should be reflected on utility rates, in my opinion. But I know we haven't got a utility rate bylaw, so unless we just say we're bumping everybody's sewer up $20 a month and here is why, and then we hold our taxes. To me, I like that better, but I know utility rates are more complicated than just saying we're bumping everybody's up $20 a month or flat rate or whatever. But the problem is the messaging. We can message and say, our sewer system, we had to upgrade it because of federal rules and it's expensive and here's what it's now costing us, versus saying, we just told you all we're going through amalgamation, it's gonna save us money and we're bumping your taxes up this year. So you get what I mean?
So if I may address that question, so, and in fairness to that messaging, which council has the right to message. We put in our interim budgets, Black Diamond actually put 2% in, and we put in Turner Valley side 3%. Inflation is still up around 5.5%, 6%. And so we have, administration is still continuing to bear, that spread with inflation. So there has to be some mechanism in order for administration to continue to operate in an environment where we have high inflation. So we understand that messaging has been that there's cost savings. I am doubtful that cost savings can be recognized in the first year of innovation.
Yep, I'll throw in there. Yeah, and something that we never actually got around to determining pre-amalgamation was this blending of the mill rates. So that is definitely a disparity. So we have to address that this year. That's 100% has to be done. The West End sewage, it is what it is. You can't change that. It's an overrun period, and we have to absorb it. I think messaging is going to be important in this first term, but the goal of amalgamation is cost savings and efficiencies in the long run, not just short run. We know the first year we're going to be taking a hit just to get everything where it needs to be. So that's part of the messaging as well. Got it?
Yeah, and I think that it's, I never anticipated that we'd find efficiencies in the first year to that point. I told everyone when I was in the campaign trail, this isn't gonna happen overnight. And we're gonna see some bumps and we're gonna make some mistakes. So I don't anticipate that we'll see great efficiencies and cost savings for 5 years. It's gonna take at least that to get this all leveled out. And we're just coming out of COVID. And we're just coming out of these huge cost of living increases. So I think that we have to really take all of those into consideration, I don't want to see an increase in taxes. I'd like to see them just stay the same because we're gonna, you know, I really have a tough time not dropping taxes somewhat when we're seeing this huge assessment of 12%. That to me is just really tough. But I get it, we gotta take care of this sewer thing, but I'd rather take care of the sewer thing through utilities, which we don't have done. So, and don't get me wrong, I didn't anticipate we'd get it done. Like, this is a transition year and we have to take that into consideration. So, I'm sure that all of our managers has done a deep dive into their budgets. I anticipate they would have done that, and this is first buzz at this. I would say that this budget, Green, what is this? What's it at percentage wise? Like on budget version 1?
Well, it's not.
Like it's an increase, right?
It is an increase, for sure. Part of that increase though is on the revenue side is we've got about $500,000 coming in from the amalgamation. So that's reserves and that's the 250,000. And so almost over $500,000 is that. And then there's the $1 million for taxes and that's it on the revenue side. So that really, plus we didn't bring as many reserves in as is a normal practice of the methodology that is being used. So we have an opportunity, and I know we don't want to necessarily draw on reserves, but if there's any year where we maybe might get some leverage, we might be able to leverage and level ourselves out by using some of our operating reserves. On the expense side, like I said, they're really that we can go back and we can look at what we have in everyone's particular business units, and we can see where we can cut some costs. But there are instances where I think last year we didn't do a lot of things because we knew that this year was going to be an amalgamation year. So we kind of held back. And for an example, I know on Craig's budget, if I may, Craig, on roads, like we've put in $225,000 just on some road maintenance. One, because last year we couldn't get, it was so hard to get someone to do work, and then it was hard to get any raw materials. So you take a year and you don't do that work. So, you know, inflation it's a killer. We did get an extra $70,000 or $80,000 from municipal affairs. So they gave us $124,000 this year for operations, where usually I think they give about 60,000 for both communities. So we've got to find, I think, collaboratively together a way to balance out that inflation and without pushing it back on residents. Because I think we all understand, because we're all taxpayers, we know how much inflation has really impacted all of us. So it's just a matter of what is that spot on the tax side, because that's going to be the item that's going to drive how we manage the rest of the budget process.
This is such a different year.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, we see that assessment going up 12%. We've seen people complaining strongly about their assessments being so high, not understanding that, you know, like me, I could sell my house for 12% more money tomorrow, but that also could mean that, you know, anyway, it is a different year coming out of COVID and amalgamation and inflation. And so I'd like to see us hold the mill rates. I'd actually like to see us give a little benefit to, because we said that the commercial side was higher.
Yeah.
And we maintained that. How much higher?
Black Diamond, their, residential, non-residential rate is, points, 8.971, ours is 8.17999.
So it's not that much.
0.08.
Yeah, so I don't mind that. And, I mean, that residential side was,
Residential is 7.226 for Black Diamond, and Turner Valley is 7.7999. So, not as much as on the on non-res side, but still a difference.
yeah, still a difference.
2.5. I'm gonna go Hazel, I'm gonna go Cindy, and then I got a comment again.
You heard any, received any confirmation back from the Alberta government on that $950,000?
Yes. It's going.
Okay, so that went to West End.
We got it, it's got it.
900,000, yeah. So to answer your question through the chair, Councillor Martin, the 900,000, we did requisition and we paid it to us.
And all the police tabs present.
So, once again, to address your question through the mayor, we, put in for the budget. $333,000 is the combined, policing requisition. And then we had a subsequent, we'll expect a rebate of about $244,000 was the calculation that we did. So, because we don't have that new policing contract, we wanted to make sure that we had something in the budget.
Yeah, so that's a carry forward, but we're gonna bank that one this year, real nice. Is that right? Or are we paying
We're
that?
gonna, I believe we're still gonna pay something.
I wasn't sure if we were paying it this year or if we had a year in lieu of that.
The new, so to answer your question, Mayor Crane, that the new contract is going to look substantially different than what we're going to be paying this year. And that will be something we'll be starting to negotiate against shortly.
So we have the process already, so maybe
I'm not sure I want to ask.
you can pull something up on that. The expectations for 2023, that it'll just be combined costs of both independent municipalities going forward on the tiered schedule that we were on previously.
Over to Cindy.
One question and probably follow up. Do we know, is there, if you take, a typical 1,200 square foot 3-bedroom bungalow in Turner Valley side versus that same house in Black Diamond, assessment value wise, are they pretty equal? Okay, so he's the whole community. Okay. So my biggest concern is, Black Diamond's had a lower mill rate, but higher utility rates than Turner Valley's, which balances out, right? Generally speaking, it balances out. So if we mess with the one and give everybody the equal mill rate, but they still have higher utility rates, we have a problem. So how soon do you think that we can get the utility rate?
Well, so to answer your question through the chair, Councilor Holiday, we can make allowances in the budget if we want to make adjustments to the utility rate. We can do a high level as to what it's going to look like. So at the end of the day, if we're going to be $343,000 short on sewer, for example, which is where we have the biggest issue, then we can look at sewer rates first. And we can have a discussion about sewer rates with the intention that they're gonna, some point very near future, they're gonna go into the utility rate line.
I guess my question was kind of a little over on the policy. Because we have the project that's ongoing, we are yet to set. Got big loan from the government to pay for our overages. Debenture. Thank you, debenture. Because we get to set our debenture. Now we have overages that are coming up constantly. Is there an ability for us at the end of that project to absorb that overage that we're actually gonna be looking for anyway? And then pay off our the venture as just get paid, but then readjust for the reality of our sewage. Versus if we're gonna add on to that sewage right now, to absorb our overages as they come in. Technically. But then once the project is done in the ground and finished, and we know our final cost, venture it, done, we then reduce this back to something more manageable.
I might weigh in.
It's going
They're
to,
not connected.
I'm gonna weigh in on this.
Well,
The venture will be 20-25 years, my expectation is. So you and I probably won't be around asking that question when the time comes, when the venture's coming off, but the utility should run self-sufficient. It should be full cost accounted, which means your sewer rates are gonna need to go up and considerably. Otherwise, you can basically pick up the payload for it.
which is what we're doing now.
Well,
You know,
At the moment,
it's
it's
one,
not in there.
it's one hand scratch from
yeah,
same back. So
it
I guess
it is and it isn't, I guess.
I'm looking for a creative way, but
Yeah.
to answer your direct question, so I'll get off this because we know that's just a dog's breakfast. We carried a 3% interim budget increase last year. Like them to 2. So moving into this year, obviously, it'd be great if we could get, you know, even Steven and just keep it the same. But I'm not against 2 to 3% if that's what's required. The inflation is horrible and everyone knows it. And it's almost unrealistic for us not to have something that addresses just that alone. So, you know, I'd rather deal with reality than, you know, giving a yay, yeah, right on, like we've given a yay, yeah, right on, but reality is 2 or 3 is probably acceptable in mind. But I'm just one counselor. I'm just giving you my piece. I could go with a 2 to 3. But I'd love it if we got a 2 and 0 in the first year, sure. But I'm good with a 2 to 3. That's my tip.
Yeah, this is so tough. I kind of been following what other municipalities have done. And there's not a lot of them that have gone 2, 3. Some of them are like 5, 6.
Oh,
Yeah, so they're recognizing this inflation. We just can't keep operating if we keep it to 2, 3 this year with an inflation rate of 5%. I just, how are we gonna do this?
Your big hurdle this year, if I might, Mayor Crane,
mhm.
is the balancing of the mill rates.
Oh, 100%.
So it's not about 2% across the board
Yeah.
at the moment. It's about half of your municipality is different than the other half, and that's got to be balanced and adjusted. And even if you're talking 0.71 to 0.79, you're talking 10 to 11%. That's the difference. I know it's a decimal point, but that's what it is in reality. So if you're going from 0.71 to 0.78, 0.79, you're talking 10%. So this is the challenge that Corinne has right at the moment, is how do we do this? We have additional assessment, which we can draw from, and which is legitimate, and most municipalities, by the way, are pulling that assessment. They're not giving it back right at the moment because of Councillor Thompson points out assessment. But at the same time, we've got to somehow balance this off, balance these mill rates. If you pull them both to the middle, one's mill rates is going to go down while their assessment increase, which is going to be a bit of a balance, but the other one's going to go up and the assessment goes up. Double whammy. And if your assessment goes up, well, at 12 residentially, and your mill rate increases by 10%, you're gonna have to get a phone warmer because it's gonna start ringing off the hook. So this is what Corinne's looking for, is where's the happy place in the middle of this, right? West End, you know, we have options to do for 2023 to do a reserve draw to pull that piece down until you get a utility rate bylaw in place, which adjusts the rates on the sewer side so that West End is not pulling your mill rates down. Wouldn't do that for more than we need to know, but. So the philosophy, does council wanna bring everything up? I think this is what Corinne's asking. Corinne, if I'm wrong, you stop me at any moment here. Do we want to pull those residential mill rates up to the highest one? Because that will make one stay the same and they just have the assessment increase. It'll also make the other one have the assessment increase plus a significant mill rate increase, and that's a bit of a problem. That's way too much. Corinne, am I correct?
I mean, we've done some, if I may, through the chair, we've done some math on what the different rates would represent and could go with, you know, it's just, if you go the lowest rate, you're looking at revenues about $6.7 million. That's using BDs and turnabout. If you do combined rate, where you take the average and you put the residential at 7.5 and the non-residential at 8.5, you're looking at revenues of about 7 million. That's keeping the assessment values as it's. So, I mean, it's an odd year, probably the worst year ever to have a tax assessment increase of 12%, if I might add.
It might be the best year to have that too, because it might allow some shielding of the.
So we ran some scenarios. It really is about what you see as a bottom line, like, and then we can go back and we can plug it in.
Okay, Cindy?
What I've noticed from this is it's a huge amount of work, especially because we've had 2 different accounting teams doing things, and I won't even pretend I understand the whole transfers to reserves and all that stuff that was going on the Black Diamond side. But I think at some point we have to leave that behind and say, what does it take to operate this town?
Yeah.
Taking out the one-time expenses, taking out the West End. You know, department managers doing their best at having a lean budget and knowing what that number is. And then we know what we have to raise in taxes. Mill rate gets set based on that. Doesn't matter what the previous ones are. What does this town, the new town of Diamond Valley, cost? Taking out one-time expenses like amalgamation, taking out all these reserves, stuff that we don't understand, starting from scratch. And how much tax money do we have to raise? That's, I think, the question I want. I know for transparency to have this document is really good to compare to what was done before, transition year, but we need to just have a clean start on this.
Which is very easy.
Yeah,
and just your question,
yeah.
It's very easy to do. There's really probably in this particular budget, maybe 3 or 4 items, big dollar items that will come up. And, you know, for example, on the revenue side, you're probably looking at a decrease of, if you took all of the reserve draw, you drop the reserve draw and you drop the grants. So we have some one-time operating grants. Even if you drop those 2 alone, you're probably only looking maybe 800,000, 850,000. So for those items, if you took them out, and then subsequently on the expense side, you would be taking those things out again. So you're maybe looking at maybe $850,000 that you're taking out of the budget, plus, you know, we have the $343,000 for the sewage. So, but otherwise, there's not a lot of extra one time. Just those big items are really, we have some grant work that we're doing as far as the berm studies that are in there. And then the grant from amalgamation, which is a big part of it. So other than that, it's pretty skinny. There's not a lot of extra money that we put in on the revenue side. So we can maybe look at incrementally 850,000.
So for when we come back, can you come with all those separated out?
Yeah, for sure.
And then tell us, you know, what that dollar is, because percentages and mill rates and all that stuff, it's, to me, it's the final, you know, we've been charging 6 million in taxes. Right, so, and do we still need 6 million or do we need 6.5? You know, what is that number? And then we calculate the rate based on that. And we just have to say this is what it costs to operate the town on an ongoing basis. And that's what we have to charge, right?
Then your question would be,
Yes.
what is the level relative, non-residential relative to residential?
Yeah, and then we'll have to make that decision.
Okay.
Keeping in mind, to address your question and really stay your patience as well, like the non-residential really isn't significant enough. It's really about that residential. That's where the big impact is going to be.
Yeah, so we can err on the side of going for lower, or with a more favorable to the businesses ratio, see how that looks and give us the less favorable, and we'll see what the difference is.
Did anyone else want the opportunity to say a few words besides just finance?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Certainly in my departments, I've taken a look internally at service levels and wondering where we should be at and looking forward down the road for, you know, council's input into that as well. But I think that some of it's very difficult to try and find the middle ground. So a lot of this was consolidation, what was previously a black budget and a $30 budget. And when we put that together and then take a look at, is all of this still necessary? Are there efficiencies to be found? And it's much more than just staff levels. It's really, you know, some of the expectations from the residents, what it takes in terms of resources, funding to be able to deliver that service. So I think that in some cases, we still will need a little bit of direction to make those final decisions that will potentially start to cut costs a little bit. And I'm certainly keeping an open mind that that may be very likely. On the other hand, I think we all went into this with a lot of efficiencies already dug down and determined.
And I think it should be noted, like salaries, wages and benefits, I mean, we've amalgamated, we have seen savings in that, it's $250,000 lower. Right, on this budget, because we have one less council and the CEO, so I know there's still more to be found and things that are still going on in transition, but unfortunately, we have all these other things like cement being more expensive, and paving and all that are stealing our thunder. But you guys have done a lot of sacrifices have been made, and some really hard decisions have been made, so I don't want it to get lost in this whole process. We have had some wins. And they're evident in the fine print, which unfortunately nobody but us are going to read, probably not the general public, but you guys have done a great job at trying to find some efficiencies really quick, so.
And if I may add, to the chair, and thank you for those what's for operations or managers. Operations in particular, there's a lot of blind spots at the moment too. Is, you know, it's difficult to fully assess in the first quarter of a year the full scope of what is necessary and what isn't. There's some challenges with you know, establishing your teams, and then at the end of the day, I use snow and ice management as an example. Knowing those service level expectations are from council, so we know how to proceed. You know, expectations around budgets, because it's really tough to come up with a value when you don't know what the anticipated service level will be and something of that nature.
Right, just want to go down one.
Swamp to more.
Yeah, I'm gonna hire 3 more.
And well, in the planning department, as we compare, you know, 1 year versus the last year's budget versus this year's budget, Turner Valley was lacking staff, a full-time planning position for the entire duration of this year. And Judy was off for a significant portion of it too, so you know, we've got a full larger complement now. There are some cost savings, maybe not cost savings, but we're pretty close to what spent last year. So our department, we process applications internally. That's what our team does, but there's a number of large scale policy projects that to be tackled, if not this year, and certainly in the coming years. Both on the infrastructure planning side and on the policy plan, the land use planning side. So if they're not tackled this year, we need to look at our 3-year budget and see what the major projects are and how to sequence them and what the budget will be for them. Because these are significant pieces that I think cost in 6 figures, and we can delay them this year because we're just evaluating, but going forward, we're going to want to start.
MDP values.
Yes.
Well, I noticed that, you know, we were over budget and planning because of exactly those types of scenarios, right? We were working on big projects, right? So, yeah, they're gonna keep on coming. So, did you have some comment first?
Yeah, that's something not just getting us through amalgamation, but long-term, I know we failed at that in Turner Valley side was you have to do your MDP every 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is. That should be divided by the number of years and just put away like we do for elections every 4 years. We have that money going in. So I would really like to see that. I think up front, we might have to because we have to do so many, we're gonna probably have to use reserves for that. But I'd love to see an annual amount that goes into your major planning policies so that they don't get outdated like our MDP did. That the money's just there, because otherwise it's really hard for a council that's sitting to say, oh, I want to spend $300,000 on a MDP this year, right? But if it's already in the bank, it's time, right?
And that just speaks to our lack of reserve policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whole nother thing.
Yeah, it's kind of apply to your tangible
Everything.
capital asset inventories and.
Yeah.
So you do want to have reserve draws from your operational budget to support those. You need to do that, you know. So don't lose track of that while you're trying to save money too.
That's something that we know we have to have.
Yeah.
Jamie? Anything?
Well, we are one, but we are still two. So, we are running 2 budgets. If 2013 taught us anything, we need 2 stations. So I don't think that's anything that we can save a whole lot of money on. I think we need a little bit of help and direction on trying to go from this one. I know that we work closely together and we look for those efficiencies. Our SCBA project, as an example, where we work regionally. So those efficiencies are always really been there. We are still quite different in some of the things that we do in our budgets, and some of the numbers are significantly different. Most of them are fairly close. One of the things that we don't do over here, and we've not done, and I can't answer why, is we never charged ourselves for the water we use. So we do look at black diamonds in the budget Corinne's done, where you look at utilities. So what is it? So gas and water, I think are free. Water's at 0. I can't tell you why it's 0. Because of all the departments, we do use some water occasionally, and sometimes a lot of it.
The public good, I think.
But I can't tell you why that was never there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And so if you go to what Corinne's talking about, and you go to the cost of us doing what we're doing as a community, we need to look at probably all those little bits and pieces. And, you know, we, in the department that we run and the way we do it is a little bit different than any other department in the municipality. And we have somewhat different expectations, which I don't know if that's the reality of the true cost of doing the business. That we provide. From the emergency management side, put that hat on, Jerry and I, we've chatted, it's pretty much, it is what it is. We do in our, this side of the budget, we did put money in for, every year for burn maintenance. Okay, we don't know, if, if we have another 2013 and log comes down, takes up a bunch of rocks, who fixes that, and where's that money come from? And if it wasn't used, it was just, I know you guys like this, dumped into reserve, so that it was always sitting there if we needed it. Then when we got the study back from the Sheep River, we find out that our burn would be a little lower than it needs to be. So where does that money come from? Is that under emergency management? Is that under grants? So I know Rod's working on a whole bunch of studies and with engineers to get that going. So there are still some differences. I don't know if that's direction from you guys to help us or how we take the next step.
Yep, nope, that's all, we're being briefed on all that, so that's all good. One question, because I haven't had an opportunity to ask you during the budget, as far as capital purchases,
Yes.
you're all up to snuff, any
Yes,
big
you-
ask?
Yes, you will be getting one.
Okay,
Rough numbers based on, and we have to replace our buggy this year, was under $200,000 for that. Do we want to tell them about the floor, Craig? So 2013 came with a little bit of a kick in the pants for us in that when the water came into community and did inundate Fireball. Subsequently, it has probably, without digging a hole and looking, allowed all the silt to settle. And so under our ladder bay floor, we have now cracked the floor and literally moves when we drive in and out over it. Along with the pavement outside that bay is also settled. And that's where most of the water was on the south end of that. Because the hole at the back, the slope up kept the water away from most of it, but it came around the front and went through that first bay. And that's my best guess as to why that's happening. But it's a significant project. Craig came over with Wanda and Roman the other day and we had a look at that and I don't even know if the number I threw out was. If there is some options, we might be able to, Craig was talking about, we probably need an engineer to look at it, but we might be able to mud jacket and stabilize it. You know, even if we fix the burn, we are still vulnerable with one of your most important resources in the lowest level of the community. And I know back in the day, because I was here when that hall was built, that was where we as a municipality had property. So it didn't cost anything for the land, we owned it. And so they built it there. I don't think anybody had the vision back then that 2013 would come along. Now we're a little bit more aware of what the potential risks are. And as we grow that way, we may want to consider long-term, like beyond this year. You know, what's the next 40 or 50 years of growth look like in relation to where your emergency services center should be located?
And
yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important that we get our offsite levy bylaw up to snuff so that we can start putting money towards an offsite levy for
fire.
for a new fire hall.
Yeah.
From the new subdivisions that come on board, because that's future thinking. So it's important to get that included on in our offsite levy bylaw going into the future.
Well, and
We don't collect anything right now for the fire halls, and we're allowed to now for the MGA, so we need to get that done so that we're starting, when new subdivisions come on board, we're collecting money for fire for in the future.
That came in, when did that? one
Yeah,
come in?
no, that was it. It was fire and
Last revision.
recreation, yeah, and the other one that was included. Libraries, yeah. community halls, yeah, that kind of thing. So
Okay.
fire and transportation are two of the most important ones. You know, and like, so, for example, I don't think either community has got a plan set up for the future of fire halls that we can collect off-site levies. So that has to be done. And this is going back to, you know, like future planning and same as transportation. Black Diamond can apply off-site levies for transportation. Turner Valley can't because they don't have a plan. So all those things are things that we have to be thinking about and to address that, Janie, you're absolutely right. We have to look into the future and start going down that road of planning for that. And where are we gonna get the money to upgrade?
Well, one of the other things you need to think about is that when we were two separate communities, last year we did 294 calls, the other deals did 227. So manageable, but probably pushing the envelope of how we do those. Now we're 500, over 500 when you put us together.
Yeah.
And so now you're still having to do all of that work. As we look to the future and you start talking developments, you need to start looking at a facility that can house people. If you need to go, you know, eventually 40, 50 years from now,
Absolutely.
you're gonna need full-time people. And you want to plan for that. I mean, the station in Okotoks, they built for the future and then started to fill it up.
Real good.
Well, agreed.
Yep.
But those are things that we need to be thinking about as well as we go down the path of this. You know, you can have as many volunteers as you want, but if they're all go to work during the day, that's when you have your biggest risk and need.
Yep.
We need to be thinking about that as well, now that you're a community that's doing 500 responses. Yeah.
You know, I think obviously right now we're operating as two departments, which has its own challenges. And it's, you know, difficult to work to potentially some of those efficiencies when we are operating as two. I think one of the biggest things is getting a fire chief in position to start looking at the department as a whole and kind of determining that organizational structure. And then out of that organizational structure, we'll be able to look at efficiencies and operations and really look at, you know, where this is going and what the community needs. But I think that position really needs to come into.
We've got a lot of advertising.
It's pretty complete.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not yet, but it's almost there.
We're working with Access on that new piece.
Good job.
Decided to hear this budget for fire chief.
Well,
That's a good question next one.
to answer your question through the chair, we have two budgets and we both have money for salaries and wages.
Right.
So we will know probably in the next little while what the impact of having a full-time fire chief will.
I just gotta ask, because it is kind of relevant. The $950 that we would have had on the ACP grant was allocated costs that we could have put directly to these overages.
Yeah.
No, what could we have used those on that could have subsidized other ones? Capital. Just
Infrastructure.
capital.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's no question, council and admin, we are in a very tough spot as two distinct communities who come together as one. We've got 12% assessment increase. We've got two different mill rates, two business, different mill rates. We've had some attrition. But we have new challenges. We have federal government that has allowed some overspending to create some overspending and some more hassle for us in terms of inflation, cost of living, groceries alone. 9 months, 10% every month. It's gone up. So we can get creative, but we're not going to win this battle in one of these fine spells tonight. So Unless we have any giant burning questions, I think Cindy wrapped up the big one for you guys best is, let's get that number first. Let's look at it and let's just do the math, divide that mill rate. Let's look at the reality of that and what that looks like to residents. Let's look at our reserves and see if there's a fine balance we can do in this first year with all the problems we're facing to lessen the pain. No matter what, it's gonna be pain. I'll agree on that. So let's look at a few of those. And let's really look at our staffing, what we need to run this community. So I said it to Corinne before, get what you need now. If we're gonna take a hard hit, now's the time. So let's get set for success and take what we're gonna need. So, right, or the next.
Just want to maybe suggest also that as we get deeper into the budget process, we will be looking at all of these areas with, much more close eyes on it. And certainly in the departments that I'm involved with, we're expected to do more with less resources. It's not just the funding, it's the boots on the ground. So I'll give you a recent example, something like parade, which we've had in a way. We've been a little bit lucky that we haven't had to do it during COVID. Last year it was contracted out. This year I will be announcing this officially, but I'm pleased to say that we've partnered with one of the service groups locally to be able to assist with that because we just don't simply have the bodies. We have Alberta Summer Games that are coming, where we have to entertain thousands of people and make sure that they're here safely and that they enjoy the experience that they have in the community. We have, a number of other things. You've heard two of them tonight. That doesn't happen without some support from the community. So I just want the council to be reminded in a sense that it will have to be soon. The must-haves and another way to be able to partner and expand those opportunities so that we stretch those dollars a little bit farther. It's everything from the donation policy to what we actually commit to in terms of events. And that's just one department. So I'll look forward to being able to present some of the scenarios for you to be able to consider through, finance to be able to look at those a little bit more closely as to what would be supported, and that's part of the service level.
Yeah.
And if I may, continuing on with the messaging, certainly around the room from all of the managers and city locations is. Problem with this budget year is we have a finite amount of time to get this done, so we're squeezed for time and it's new and we're trying to get this put together in such a way that it still makes sense and we can, explore what's under those rocks and keeping in mind that as we go through into the summer months, we can really start to do some planning around what the next few years are going to be like. And so although this budget is going to be a little bit hurried and we're not going to have the opportunity to talk to residents about, what's in it. I think we can perhaps gain some speed and some leverage by saying to residents, while we're on this, we're going to get another budget process is going to be going in, 3 months from now, we're going to be knee deep in trying to move forward. And so that's when we're really going to be exploring directionally where the town is going to go. So although I think this one might be just a difficult conversation with residents, I think if we can at least get that buy-in that we're going to start this process early, we're going to try and get a multi-year budget going again, and we're going to explore all the options. It might give residents a little bit of a sense that we're on this and that we understand their concerns. So this process is not going to be perfect because it's short, because it's new, and because we're all trying to figure out our departments. But I think we can build on this and see where it takes us going into the summer and into the fall. So it's short, and we'll go back. We'll take out some of those, the suggestions that have come out of tonight. We'll look at the incremental increases and we'll pull them out. And they need, expenses and revenue there, and then we'll get bare bones and we'll as a management team come back, and we'll come back as well with the capital side of things. So, we'll certainly go back and review our numbers.
Sounds good, Hazel.
Have you completed your asset management plan?
We are working, so to address your questions with the chair, we have gotten the grant and we have staff member that's spending some time. And we are working on that project. It's up and going now. We're starting up.
Follow up to that. So we were 2 years into a 3-year in Turner Valley. So will we move through the Black Diamond infrastructure now and start incorporating the entire system? So it'll be longer, of course, than one. I'm hoping that we're on to another 3-year cycle where it's going to be continuing asset management.
So to address your question, and there's been lots of dialogue, I think overall our first real component of that project will be getting the system to a point where it's user friendly and the data that we put in is accurate and makes sense. So the individual that's working on it has a really strong aptitude to working with different programs of software. She's really exhibited and done some good things with our health and safety system. And I think so getting that data clean and getting the system where we want it to be, and how we want it to look, will allow us to incorporate the Black Diamond infrastructure information in this year. So that's really, that goal is really about having a system that makes sense and works for us. So that's what we're working on right now.
Excellent. Sydney.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we can schedule the next budget discussion as a special meeting,
Probably a good idea.
just by itself, especially if we're doing capital.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to compound the 19th. Make that an assessment meeting, because we have a lot of stuff. Yeah, let's
be a beast.
Yeah, so let's get a special one just for budget. That way we can get all the councillors in.
Maybe a total false. I requested to on call, just, we don't have
Sure.
councillors do it,
Yeah.
just so I can make it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Special budget meeting, capital items, right?
Yeah.
Like, and utility rate, like, I think if we're gonna have the same mill rate, we've gotta have the same utility rate shortly after, so. If you can bring us the information we have, that would be.
We have lots of it.
Uh-huh.
I'll just dust it off.
Yeah, I think we're gonna move on from 10.1. We'll accept it for information right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And motion for to follow with. Bernie's got that. All in favor? Bingo. Thank you. Thank you everyone for staying as late as you did.
Brenda, did you have that? I didn't see any head nodding, so it's like, it's right.
Yeah, thank you guys. Number 2, I think I gotta get my proclamation on. The guys are all gonna miss it.
You lost your audience.
Ah.
They're gonna put property audience every time just for you.
That's the only time I get to be in here. Let's see if I can find it here. So 10.2, well, I guess, Mick, while I'm for my hard copy, you can introduce it and sell it, eh?
Thank you, McCrane. I'm very happy to report that again this year through our SPSS department, we will be celebrating our local volunteers through volunteer appreciation of the house. The week of the 16th to the 20th, I believe.
22nd, I think.
Thank you. Is declared the National Volunteer Appreciation Week, at which time municipalities are asked to recognize locals who contributed so much. And so part of recognizing that is the declaration through proclamation of that respect and appreciation, as well as an invitation to council to join us for the appreciation event, which will be held at the Sheep River Library on April 20th.
Excellent, thank you. Now, following our new procedure, I need a motion for a proposed proclamation to take place.
I'll give you that. Council agreed to proclaim the week of April 16th to 22nd National Volunteer Appreciation Week in the town of Diamond Valley.
Thank you. All in favor? 2023, the mayoral proclamation. Whereas the volunteer spirit and resiliency that helped to build Diamond Valley is alive and strong today. And whereas volunteers in Diamond Valley mentor our children, feed our hungry, support those feeling isolated, beautify our green spaces and fundraise for our charitable organizations. And whereas Diamond Valley's volunteers are individuals, families, workers, retirees, community members of all ages and backgrounds who commit their time, their talents to improve the quality of life for our entire community. And whereas the skill, the time, the kindness, the compassion shown by our citizens in helping others during these unprecedented times of crisis so deeply appreciated. And now, therefore, I, Barry Crane, Mayor of Diamond Valley, do hereby proclaim April 16th and 22nd, 2023 National Volunteer Week and encourage citizens to recognize the crucial role played by volunteers in our community. Yes. I love volunteers. Can't say it any better than that, really. Although the flu I got the other day definitely took the lungs out of my chest there. You can't even do a sentence now as long as 4 lines. That's pretty bad. But it's true. I was running 30 laps in 12-15 minutes at the school when I was volunteering as a basketball coach. Got the flu. The next week we had parents versus or teachers versus students. When I played, I couldn't run longer than 2 minutes, and I had to totally toast. Lungs were gone. So really bad. Anywho, all good. Just give you a little brief comical relief update there. Okay, so now we have a new one. Municipal enforcement. What is this? What do we have? Some staff report. CAO. Staff monthly reports.
No, this is actually just a community services report, Mayor Crane.
Well, I was gonna say, like it said, Monique right there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Monique. There it is. Why don't we do this? Council, any questions on Monique's beautifully detailed bulleted report?
Like, there was a lot of.
If Hazel's book is clean, then you're good.
I would just like to say thank you. There's a lot, and I just love, especially the municipal enforcement getting into the schools and all the good things that are happening in the town. And yeah, you have a hard job, but an exciting one.
It's never boring. Thank you. I'll pass that on to staff. They're doing an outstanding job.
Yes, they are. And what's that?
I would like,
What was the question?
I would like for municipal enforcement.
Oh, oh,
We,
Correct.
if I may.
Yeah, sure.
answer that. It has been considered. Yes, there's some difficulties around that in terms of the logistics. Part of it is just, well, a lot of things in terms of, but we have made an agreement with operations, which we're really pleased about, and they will be able now to monitor and patrol the pathways because of the help of what they call the club car. I call it a.
Excellent news.
So they're doing that, they're already on foot, walking around the unofficial dog park area, off leash area.
I do have to add that trying to stop electric bicycles from speeding. I fear that the club car will sadly be underpowered to catch it because its maximum speed is only 20 kilometers an hour.
I'm not worried about that so much as the darn dog's off leash. It was yesterday, a great big dog off leash again on that pathway. And my little dog sees a big dog and he goes out of his mind and he's on leash. So,
Fear of being eaten.
Hmm?
Fear of being eaten. I will just say this, referenced in 14.3 of correspondence, a letter from the principal of Oilfields High School, giving great kudos to the peace officers. Just want to point that out. Very proud of that recognition. So just to mention, okay, motion by Hazel to accept the CAO and staff reports for information. Seeing anybody else comments? No. All right, all in favor? That's carried. spring cleanup program. Ooh, right. Facebook got you.
Well, Facebook does get me.
Do we have a chance? What do we got?
Yes, yeah, so through the chair. I'll take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the spring cleanup program that Turner Valley has done in the past, and I've been asked to consider for Diamond Valley moving forward. I just wanted to talk about some of the challenges and then maybe propose a couple of options moving forward that might be better suited for managing such a program. The intent for the spring cleanup program would be to provide residents that ability to dispose of those large, maybe even, well, how about the disposable items that sort of build up in people's backyards that are not organic or recyclable. And Turner Valley Council had set up a couple of years in a row an opportunity for residents to dispose of those materials in the bins that were somewhat strategically placed around the municipality. We ran that program for 2 years, and it came with many challenges, and the least of which was the fact that people were dumping materials that were restricted or hazardous. Bins would be overflowing because someone would show up with a large trailer and just dump, and within minutes of emptying it, they would be full again. Materials were being dumped that shouldn't have been in there. So now staff were having to climb into those bins and pick those pieces out. We were going by, and when the bins were full, we were picking up materials that residents would just dump on the ground next to them. So it was unsightly, it was unsafe, and potentially contaminating because some of that material was leaking. We don't necessarily know what some of that material is because we have no management of it or supervision of it. So people took liberty and just dumped what they wanted. It wasn't sort of. And the program wasn't necessarily utilized 100% by Turner Valley residents. We even had contractors coming and dropping off construction material in those bins. So it was a great attempt to try and mitigate a possible solution to removing materials from unsightly yards or such. Unfortunately, it came with unintended consequences that caused the town more grief than a solution or result. Furthermore, it kind of created a tension or a relationship issue between the landfill manager and the municipality, because he was not very happy that we initiated the program to begin with, but then they were quite particular or critical of the materials that were being dumped. So it strained our relationships for a period. So the program over that 1 week period, between tippage fees for materials at the dump and hauling fees and rental fees for those bins, the obvious costs were between $12,000 and $14,000. It did not account for all the hours that our staff were required to handle materials, manage those carts and bins, and the administrative time dealing with the complaints and concerns and municipal enforcement's time associated to dealing with trying to control those sites specifically. So I strongly recommend and plead with council that this is not a program that we carry on and move forward with. It's not really best value for our residents. I would suggest a couple of options for council to consider If they wish to move forward with a large item or spring cleanup program, that'd become more of a supervised effort. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. We identify a couple of locations that are fenced, gated, where we can either hire a contractor to manage over the course of the week. That way we can ensure that hazardous materials are dealt with appropriately, that illegal materials are not accepted, and then we can maybe even make that more of a recyclable effort as well, where we can have multiple bins where we can have steel in one area and so on and so forth. The other option, which I have participated in previous municipality, is where we have a registry or even just a simple curbside program where we say, if we just did a curbside program, for example, we specify to our residents that this area on this day or two, put these items on curbside. We have a contractor or staff that drive by with a large bin and a loader, and we dump all that material. It's also an opportunity for upcycling, where residents can kind of pick through other people's less valued treasures. And then we make sure that our staff will only pick up stuff that are legitimately or properly landfillable, and those materials that are illegal or hazardous would remain. Another option, which is similar to this program, is a registry program where for a particular week, we would schedule a contractor, a resident would call in, for example, and say that they have materials that would be picked up. And we could even charge a small fee, whether it be $5, $8, $10, just, and someone takes their information, address, and that particular neighborhood with those addresses, we go along with them up. And again, if there's materials that are hazardous or not sanctioned through the program, we don't pick them up when it leaves. So there are a couple other ways, but the program in its original state is really quite problematic and
Yeah, I agree. That program needs to go away.
Yeah.
I really like your options. I like the option B, that's actually. So my idea on why this program was originally set up was exactly that. Yard waste that people that couldn't get to the dump or didn't have a trailer or whatever to go to the dump, that's what it was set up for. Not couches, not tires, not oil, not a contractor with a trailer, or even a resident with a utility trailer. So I think that this one would help those people that really do need the help to get rid of this kind of, and you know, charging an $8 or $10 fee is much less than driving to the landfill with the back of your SUV full and unloading and driving back home, or even a pickup truck. So I think that I prefer B with a small fee. You phone and ask us to come get it, and then it's controlled. If we're gonna do it, I kind of wonder if we should do that.
Yeah. Look, I think it's good debate. Hazel?
I guess in High River at one time, Craig, is that the town of High River, you would go to the dump, you would show that you were a resident of Black Diamond, of High River, by the utility bill tax, and you were allowed to dump. Did you also kind of look at that route as another possibility?
To the chair, so that's my intent with the supervised program, where you have a gated fenced location, and And we can do any number of things at that point. We can make sure that, we check if that's as far as we want to go, check, residency. But yes, a supervised diversion, regardless of what the details of that supervision are certainly, more valued than we can control it.
Cindy?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of secure locations because if you can get it there, you should be able to get it to the landfill. Yeah. Right? I also don't believe like private industry, there's lots of companies that do this.
Yeah.
We're kind of overarching, you know. I think we're overstepping our bounds. I think it was a fun idea to do once, but then probably shouldn't have even done it a second time because people learned and abused the second year, I think, worse than the first year. It's like, but it's like everybody in this town either drives an F-150 or their neighbor drives an F-150. Right? Like people have we're Alberta, people have access to vehicles. And if you don't, the few people that don't, then they have to pay for it. Well, that sounds more fair than people than everybody else having to pay for you who don't. Like, there's gotta be a line of what we offer and what we don't. I do like the idea of having like a 1 day a year that's advertised, put your stuff on the curb and people can take it. That everybody does it, like the free garage sale all at once and everyone can drive around that day. And then if it doesn't get taken away, you bring it back into your house, right? Something like that, that this is the 1 free day. So everyone can go hunt for bargains. There's, you know, something like that. I'd be happy with it, but that should be probably not in the next plate looking at your department report. So I'd just like to see it gone away and let people, like if you've got this stuff home from the store, you should be able to take care of it. Yeah. And we should stay out of it.
Yeah, through the chair, I agree with that. I did really positive here to present some options, but I'll be fully honest. I agree with that reasoning, and you can afford, it's like hiking, you can pack it in, you can pack it in. I think the larger issue with the residents that end up with unsightly yards has nothing to do with the capability of affording, or I think it's just more of a habit or a disposition. You end up with people that have stuff in their yard and they, what we see as trash is their treasure or just their way of doing things.
Yeah, I think, I love that program, but I gotta agree with Cindy, that second year, man, everyone, the rats in the cage learned how to run that race, I'll tell you. There was more stuff in those things within minutes of an empty one on the street. And there was one fellow who actually broke his leg falling out of one because he was in trying to get stuff. But, yeah. I'm gonna side with Cindy on this one. I love the program. If I were to pick one, I would have went with, probably C, but I'd like B as well. But I think, you know what, this year, I'm just letting people do.
I'm good with that, so should we make
Yeah.
that a motion?
Okay. Thank you for the information. But thanks for the report.
Yep, so, happy to be the one.
This information, that's all. Yeah, on favor. We're good. Do appreciate that though, because we need to have that debate and get it out of the way.
No, thank you.
Where are we at here, guys? Are we almost there? Are we just meeting minutes now? Got some action considered? We got any action in those minutes? Let's see, library. No, it looks like information, okay.
I have a couple of questions regarding the library though, just for clarity.
Better after they.
Yeah. All right.
Because the minutes are saying things that I don't.
I'm gonna read them though.
So the February minutes, so 13.2 February 9th minutes, they're noting they agreed to some, board appointments. And I don't think that the library board appoints anyone, so these are just things that need to be clarified with the library. And then they agreed to, they read the bylaw and approved it. And to establish a library. And I don't think that that's up to the library board to do that. So if you could just take that back to them and say that's not their job. That is the town.
I think we made the recommendations and we sent those to Linda.
Yeah, usually the appointments are recommended to council.
Yeah.
And then, so if you can just get that clarified and maybe get them to amend their minutes because, or I guess they can amend their minutes, but yeah, those were just a couple of things that kind of, and then just for clarity too, and I know that you addressed this, that you said that you forgot to attach. Usually you don't have attachments to minutes. The attachments go with the agenda. So you can just tell them that they don't really need to have attachments to minutes. You can have them, but it's.
But go for the two members that we recommended, that paperwork must be here. Because now they should be included, no, they should come to council, we just going to. Yes, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
If I may through the chair, when I originally sent these documents over to the library board, I gave them instructions that they were for their review and comment and to get back to me. Something must have got lost in translation. I'm not sure where. I've also been in contact with the provincial public libraries representative to clarify some of this stuff. He was a little bit concerned because he saw those minutes too, and no, they shouldn't have adopted the bylaw or appointed anybody or any of that stuff. I've been in discussions with the library board, the chair, and as I said, the provincial person, and we've got it all straightened out. You will be getting the RFD and the bylaw on your April 19th meeting. And their RFD also requests that all the board members be appointed at that time. That will include your current board members have to be reappointed because it's a new board we're establishing, as well as the council members and your new. Yes, so that like I said, I've been in conversations with the public library services and we've got it all ironed out. So you will be seeing an RFD with that bylaw on the next regular meeting agenda.
Perfect. Just those two things just caught my eye and I'm kind of going, oh.
Mayor Green, can I add one jump to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Sean, and then I'll take.
Did all this nice work here and completely don't get to use it, so that's good.
Can we get a
But yeah,
motion to extend first?
Do we need to extend past 10 now?
you're not much left here, I don't think, really.
I think
Well, it's
there's
1 minute.
a 15 minutes window to finish it.
Sure.
I think we got our 15, yeah, okay, good.
I do want to say that, yeah, at least it's correct and she's been working with the libraries branch and all this and Councillor Thompson's absolutely correct. Library can recommend, council, they can recruit. Council needs to appoint and council needs to pass the establishment bylaw. We want to approval to Lisa, however, because the libraries branch people said that that was one of the most impressive establishment packages they've ever seen.
What, because the library job?
Yes,
Yeah, kudos.
Kudos.
Hey, nice, done. Good job. All right. Cindy.
I'm just wondering if maybe they're, like, I know for our council meetings, we only record motions, and I know committees do a little bit more information, but is there any chance we can offer some training for whoever's taking minutes and notes? Like, I'm just laughing, like, Ian gave a brief recap and brief was crossed out, like, little things like that. I guess he wasn't brief, so they. No cross out.
If I may, she's a chair.
And just what you would include in minutes and what they can make just as their own private notes for moving forward. So that we get because these are published, it's seen by lots, so we should be a little more careful.
And if I may through the chair, I did offer that opportunity to that particular group. They never got back to me, and all I asked was, if you would like me to come in for a quick 10 minutes, I'll walk you through. Give you a little bit of orientation on the expectations and what have. Basically, we do have a committee orientation policy. And I did offer that, and so perhaps Councillor Martin may reiterate that, and we can arrange that at a later date.
Well, it would make their life more simpler, so just recording motions and then make your little notes, to-do lists and stuff.
Somewhere else, yeah, outside of this.
Yeah.
And just going back into my past, when I received minutes, I would make suggestions for changes, so it just helped a little bit. But yeah, it's a difficult one for, like, these are volunteers, so you don't wanna, but it's good. So.
And I just let folks know that couple things that are happening at the library. First of all, the podcast room, the staff are working on a community podcast room, and it should be open in time for the 40th anniversary on April 29th. So they already have a couple people looking to use that. And another idea, another item is Muriel Diaz. She passed away about a year ago, and she left some money to the library. And that is being put towards Mercy up to Children's Corner.
Nice.
Very nice.
Course, April 30th.
April 29th.
29th.
Yeah, she should be.
Okay, I'm gonna get a motion to accept the Foothills Regional Landfill Commission and the River Library Board meeting minutes. Hazel, all in favor? Thank you. And we have correspondence. Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services acknowledges MPSA. We have Municipal Affairs, the JUPA extension. I should go on that and just have a big conversation about JUPA.
Can I actually speak to these as you go through them?
Yeah, sure.
There's some information.
You want to hit on the first one?
Yeah.
Let's go Minister of Public Safety, because we're gonna hit on them all and then we're gonna accept them.
So this is your police, this is your municipal policing services agreement. So I contacted Inspector Moreland and told him, look, we got the letter. That's great. So I asked him steps. He suggested that get a Pam from Public Safety Canada branch. Given me as their contact, and I've already contacted Pam to get next steps on that policing agreement. So in process. Okay. Corinne is aware. The JUPA, we actually have a draft version of it ready for council's approval. It was required to have been completed by June of 2023. So Nick and I and Drew Chipman and Les have been reviewing drafts and have met on a couple of occasions, and we actually think we have a JUPA ready to go for council approval. And I think the day after or 2 days after Drew sent the last version, province extended the deadline by 2 years for completion.
2 years.
All right, we'll wrap it up, eh?
Get it done.
So we might as well get it done.
Yeah, I think we're.
I actually emailed Drew today to say, we want to still go through with this because
Yeah.
the private school board and Foothills School Division also have to approve it. So I just want to make sure he's on board. He's on vacation till next week.
Yeah.
Okay. But it is funny, race. Always.
Yeah. All right, then we have our peace officer recognition from the principal of Royal Fields High School. Very good to see that. That just, it just speaks to the outstanding work that our officers are doing, making and building relationships with students. And, the principal said offhand, when he presented me with that letter, that, you know, we've got so many teachers go out from COVID, sickness, everything under the sun, that the guys have stepped in and had to take on classes. Throw them all in the gym, all right, playing volleyball, playing dodgeball, and, you know, entertain 2-3 classes of kids some days. So they're very appreciative, and we will let the board trustees know that as well. And we'll be having a conversation with them in the future around those same conversations. So that's good. Worst dinner ever, which is like fantastic. That is like the best tagline ever for the legendary Leo's, which is the youth branch of the Lions Club. And they're doing bratwursts and sides and desserts. And you can get your tickets, $20, enter the raffle. And I'll actually be cooking at that one, so you know, I'll be cooking perfection.
Where is it being held?
At the Flair Dairy on the 25th of April. 6:30. And then we have Little Britches Parade, May 20th. And so that one is, are they asking us to join or just show up and enjoy?
Yes.
Possibly.
We have to RSVP.
Right, we might have to build a Diamond Valley float one day. Then we have, well, hey, we got extra staff, we got time.
That's all perhaps.
Yeah. Parks.
I have no creativity, so don't ask me.
Yes, just left the building.
You know, we have Health Trust. Of course, the Health Trust, Sheep River Health Trust is an ongoing trust for everything medical related. Nick?
Can I speak to this one, please? This is the one that we quickly went through the corporate support grant, which I have drafted. I'm hoping to be able to present to you soon. It will likely not be available yet for this committee as a whole, but it will be coming. So in the meantime, if it's something that still needs to come to council, I think we have a little bit of time on this, and the new policy I'm hoping will be in place so that it's considered through that process. But in the meantime, if it looks like any of these are getting close to deadline, then I will bring them forward. Oh, that would be good.
Sounds good. And yeah, we look forward to seeing that. So, all good. And this Burhead Office of the Mayor letter, talking with EPR.
EPR.
Yeah.
Electronic press, what is that?
No. I just stuck my glasses in here.
Producer responsible.
Oh,
Second.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we want to pass on the cost of recycling newspapers to the newspaper companies, not the print company, the companies that actually produce newspapers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's called the Extended Property Responsibility Regulation. It came into effect November 30th. To reduce the amount of material that ends up in recycling bins, shifting the cost of recycling off municipalities and onto the producers themselves. Newspaper groups are like up in arms about this because a lot of the small town newspapers are already struggling.
Yeah.
They're making arguments that you can use it for packing and moving and fish and chips and
Light and fire.
all kinds of other stuff, right? So they estimate the cost of Alberta newspapers annually will be over $2 million.
Very nice.
I agree.
So I had no idea until Councillor Thompson asked this question. According to the province, the new EPR framework will diversify our economy by encouraging companies to find innovative ways to recycle it. Or bankrupt them, whichever comes first.
There you go. Will accept for information. Anyway.
I'm taking the motion to accept all correspondence as information.
Excellent, thank you. All in favor? Okay, well, we four did great tonight, just want to say.
Yes, you did.
Need a motion to adjourn.
Nope, we are done.
Council,